One big team. One big team. One big team.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 73 of Riot Act, the alternative music podcast, with me, Stephen Hill, and him, Lad Cakes, Renfrey Deadman.
Steve came to the door and said, "All right, lad cakes," and it felt vaguely sort of feels like a insult that Stephen King would use in a sort of like something like "Stand by Me" or something like that.
Yeah,
lad cakes. Yeah,
I thought it was nice. It was meant to be nice.
I think it's the cakes bit. It's my sensitivity with my weight, but thank you. But don't worry, it's fine. It's fine. I don't care. I know it was intended in a a nice way. So
I don't really think about the actual meaning of words a lot.
Oh, that explains it.
Yeah,
that explains this podcast.
Yeah, I just like I like the sounds. It's all sounds, isn't it? I like the sounds. Anyway, hello. Welcome to the show. We want to start by saying thank you to our friends at Musicism. We'll do that a bit first, won't we, I reckon?
Yes, you do that now. Yeah. I'm going to get another pen because mine's run out whilst you do that, but it's going to be super fun.
Welcome to the show. Musicism is our friends. They're our friends. You walking has skewed me. I didn't know what's going on. So big shout out to our friends at Musicism who have bestowed all of this wonderful equipment upon us, and upon you they will bestow the gift of better musical chops. For guitarists, singers, songwriters, producers, and the like, go to musicism.net and you can get a series of online tutorials which will help you become better in all of those areas. It's $9.99 a month, or if you're feeling like you want to sort yourself out with a wee little bargain, we can do that for you. Put Riot in the checkout and in capitals, and you'll get 25% off.
Perfect.
Not
perfect. Very quickly, actually, I've picked up the guitar again quite recently, and I started farting about with Musicism's courses and stuff, and they are fucking great. Like quite genuinely, they are brilliant.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no musical ability whatsoever, apart from being able to occasionally go, and I don't sure if that counts.
Why the for the YouTube watchers? Why you did look like you were
deathcore, innit? That's it. Renfrey, before we go any further, I think we've got a couple of gigs we might talk about before we go on to the rest of the show.
Oh, do you want to do that?
Yeah. I just want to mention I saw Max and Igor Cavalera playing Rise Beneath the Remains, or so I don't know what they're called in the tour, but basically a load of stuff from Arise and Beneath the Remains, and it was fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant. I want to give a quick shout out to Conan, who I think I spoke about previously on the show, who supported him with the main support. Liverpudlian Scouse, like really cool kind of Scouse sense of humour, and just like way about them that was good, and some crushing riffs. But oh god, Beneath the Remains and Arise, I would say they are quite good. Two of, for me, the quartet of maybe the best run of 4 metal albums maybe ever.
So Beneath the Remains, Arise,
KSID, Roots.
KSID, Roots.
Yeah.
Fair.
I think that's there's others, obviously. Metallica would probably give it a good run for its money. Yeah. Slayer might do, although I think they kind of do drop off on that fourth one a little bit. If you're going Raining Blood, South of Heaven, Seasons in the Abyss, and then
Divine Intervention.
Divine Intervention's good, but I don't think it's as good as that. You know, I think you get those first 4 Metallica records are fucking insanely brilliant.
I wouldn't put Slayer in there personally.
I think Pantera are right there. I think Pantera, Cowboys from Hell, Vulgar Display, Far Beyond Driven, Great Southern Trainkill. That would be the other one. I think Gojira have a bit of a shout for that as well.
Oh, from Mars Sirius.
Yeah, and beyond, maybe Mastodon with Remission, Leviathan,
Blood Mountain, Crack the Sky. I would
That's
totally
pretty fucking
say that.
good. But I am going to say...
Machine Head starting from Supercharger.
Well, they came back pretty strong straight from that, didn't they?
Yeah,
they came back pretty strong
Head.
Straight from that, to be fair. Yeah. So it's not the worst. I mean, it's a pretty bad shout, but it's not the worst shout in the world. But, mate, I just, you rarely get to hear Inner Self and, Beneath the Remains and Dead Embryonic Cells and stuff like that.
Dead Embryonic Cells.
Oh my fucking god. And Murder. When they were pulling out the sort of the slightly deeper cuts from that. And I have to say as well, I saw Max and Igor doing the Return to Roots tour. Now, Roots is my favourite Sepultura record. It's one of my favourite records ever, full stop.
Yeah, I think so.
And there were bits on that record that they couldn't really do anymore. There's quite a lot of kind of that kind of groovy, high energy, and also quite weird. I think people forget there's a lot of weird. People sort of say, "Oh, Roots is the new metal album." There's loads of weird shit like "Look Away," and then you've got really, really fast stuff like "Spit" or "Straight Hate" or whatever. But I think people kind of forget that there is that kind of weird sort of noise element to Roots as well, and they sort of struggled with those more kind of ambient, those kind of weirder bits. I think they kind of struggled to do that. But with Beneath the Remains and Arise, because the recent Soulfly, Cavalera Conspiracy, and what else has he done? Killer Be Killed stuff is fucking full blown thrash. They can still play that. He's got a great band with him. Mark Rizzo, who's been the guitarist in Soulfly for a long time, is fucking brilliant, and he can do those like squealing Cavalera, Andreas Kisser riffs. Mate, it was so good.
Cool.
It was so good. And Igor still hits the drums, harder than John Lennon hits his wife, right? Sorry.
Okay. I mean, okay.
Hit his wife. Sorry, he doesn't hit her anymore.
It was the fact that it was in the present tense and not the past tense, which I was furious about. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Really good.
Excellent. I went to see Devin fucking Townsend. No reason.
So I was just so fucking knackered. I was going to go to that, and I was so tired. I had such a mad week in the run up to it. I just couldn't make myself get myself down there. I'm gutted.
You missed a hell of a show.
I know.
So last time Devin was at the Roundhouse was for the Retinal Circus, which has kind of gone down in history as one of the most bonkers sets ever. There was like 7-foot alien vaginas where Ziltoid was birthed on stage and all that sort of thing, and it was narrated by Steve Vai, and Jed Simon came out from Strapping Young Lad. Well, Jed Simon is the guitarist, isn't it? I'm not making a dick of myself there. Good. He came out and did a couple of Strapping Young Lad songs. And, it was like a 3-hour extravaganza, that Retinal Circus show. And this one was actually far less, I'm nicking a line from my Metal Hammer review, was far less of a spectacle, but just as spectacular. Come on, it's great.
That's pretty good, though.
Yeah. So a lot of material from Empath. It was the night. I mean, here in the UK, we've just had a stunningly awful election process where the same shits who have been fucking up this country for the last 9 years or something like that.
Yeah, they'll sort it out though.
They'll
sort it out. They'll sort it out.
They'll sort it out. It's fine. But it was on election night. And Devin came out and he sort of said, "Look, I know this is a really weird night for this country, but like, just come with me to this faraway island, blah, 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 blah," and like the whole Castaway stuff that's happening with Empath and all that kind of thing, and take a 2-hour vacation with me. And it was a perfect way to just forget about all the shit that was happening and just, be a little bit anxious about what was happening. He started with like Borderlands, the 11-minute, like really weird Oompa Loompa-y type song.
Bold.
Yeah, bold, isn't it? Yeah. And I was a bit like, really? But live, the more sort of esoteric, weirder material on Empath, the second half broadly, really came across really well. He did Why as well, the song which basically sounds like a musical number, and it sounded absolutely amazing. His band were phenomenal. There were 10 musicians in total, and there was like 3 backing singers and a couple of guitarists and someone on what I'm going to vaguely call laptop and electronics and stuff like that. And
I've heard some stuff about this band.
Oh, go on.
I'm not sure if I should say though.
Ooh, okay.
I'm
a bit worried about what you're going to say now.
No, don't be worried. I've heard, I don't want to sort of start any sort of... I've heard that Devin feels like he could get better. He's been wanting to get better musicians. I've heard he put a lot of his own money into this show, and a lot of it went on the people he was playing with. That's all I'm going to say, because he said he wanted the very, 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 very best session musicians in the world.
That would not surprise me at all.
Right, okay.
And I think that's okay to say that.
Okay, I just didn't want to make it sound like I was slagging off anyone who's in the
No, and DTP. No. I mean, the DTP musicians are fantastic, but with all due respect to the DTP musicians, from what I have seen of them, I don't think they could have done some of the stuff that was happening in this show. The drummer, Morgan
Freeman.
I can't remember his surname, I apologise, but he's the drummer for the Casualties of Cool Sessions. And Devon has actually said in the past that he is basically the best drummer he's ever worked with.
Wow.
Which when you consider,
Gene Hoglan.
Thank you. Yeah. Working with Gene Hoglan from Strapping Young Lad. It's to do with the fact that, like, he can do a little bit of everything, and it's sort of playing... It's. I think the hard thing with drumming is playing quietly. And that's something that, like, a lot of drummers can't do. And he was able to do all that stuff. And there was a really weird drum solo bit in the middle of... and I'm not a fan of drum solos usually, but this was so odd and weird. Like, Devon kept bringing stuff out for him to, like, hit, like a fan, which he just...
A fan?
A fan. No. Not a human being fan. A fan as in
who's he, Josh Homme?
Is it a swirly thing? And I think a kettle at one point. And it was sort of so bizarre that it kept me entertained, even though it was a drum solo, and that very rarely happens.
Yeah.
There was a mid-period bit where I think casual fans could sort of maybe floated away a little bit, but there were 4 songs from Key in a row. I think it came out 2009, the first DTP record, which is a really interesting sort of country-infused mellow record. I remember listening to a commentary Devon did on it when, and I think I believe he had a newborn baby at the time or something like that, but for whatever reason, he was writing the music at night, and all of the because he was writing at night, he was trying not to wake people. Everything sounds a little bit like muted and quiet on that record, and it has a very unique kind of sensibility, that album, and it was really interesting seeing that material, which is very rarely played. It was like Coast, Gatto, 2 others, and then he finished with like Genesis, which just sounded massive. I mean, this band, that record is so sonically vast and massive. It sounds like a universe colliding in on itself. And the fact that they managed to recreate it with, there may have been the odd backing track here and there, but there was a laptop on stage, so quite possibly, but for the main part, it really felt like they were playing it, which a lot of his contemporaries, you cannot say that
Definitely not. Yeah, for sure.
So
sounds good.
Yeah.
Kind of annoyed I didn't go. I mean, I feel like I should really have just dragged my ass out, but I was so knackered, which we'll get to in a minute.
I do. I know I've wanged on about it. There's a lot to say. I do need to talk about Spirits Will Collide, which he finished the main set with, acoustic rendition with the backing singers. And Che from Casualties of Cool was there as well. And she was doing some of the Anneke van Gensberg parts, which is quite cool because she's got a far more sultry, sort of bluesy voice. And they finished with a cover of Disco Inferno. And Kingdom, which sounded fucking huge. That's
great.
Such a good song, Kingdom, isn't it?
Yeah.
As soon as I left, I put Epic Loud on.
I bet it's jumped a few places in your top 20 albums of the year as well, isn't it?
Don't spoil that.
It's out. Oh, sorry, Epic Cloud. Sorry, I thought it was Empath. Sorry, I was miles away then. Because I was thinking when you said you saw Pup and they were quite high and you just put Devon, I wondered if Empath had moved up your...
I think, I haven't actually thought about it, but I imagine, I think it probably has, to be honest, realistically.
All right, well, this week, before we do one last thing, this is our last show before we do a sort of break for Christmas. So, Renfrey, I'm going to do this on camera and on the show. I've got you a present.
What?
Yeah, I got you a present. Close your eyes, because you know what? I didn't wrap it up because...
last time someone told me to close my eyes before they gave me a present.
I got you something which I know you're a serious music fan.
Oh my God.
So I got you the Bros Christmas box.
Oh wow.
And it is an original pressing as well.
Thank you so much. It contains push Christmas picture disc, Christmas interview cassette including Silent
cassette.
Night.
Yeah. So
exclusive Bros Christmas card and a limited edition portrait print.
So I know you like your music, so I thought Bros.
Yeah.
We spoke about them quite a lot over the year.
That's going up on my wall.
Yeah. You've even got the one who no one speaks about anymore. It's on it as well. The other one one with no name.
But, it's been signed.
Been signed as well, yeah. by me and Morrissey.
I'll try and sell it for $300 on eBay. Wow, I feel awful. I didn't realize that was going to happen. So
That's all right. It's just,
God,
just proof of what a nice guy I am. It's for me and Emily. Emily actually found it and she was like, "We have to get Renfrey this." So
that's lovely.
did, yeah.
That good. Where am I going to put that? I wonder.
Well, with all your other vinyl, I would imagine.
Hold on, Bros Live, the Big Push Tour. SRP, don't know what SRP means, $9.99 out now on video. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's got all the songs on it.
You know, I mean, I didn't get you that. You can get that yourself. But
I can't afford it. Wow.
Anyway, he's broken it already. What an arsehole.
No, I haven't.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
No worries,
Love it.
mate. Enjoy that. The Bros Christmas box is available. Maybe.
I doubt it is available.
It's probably not.
Well, if you want mine, I've got one going.
Okay. Oh, come on. But anyway, so this week, as it is the last show of the year, we have decided to
Really.
No, it's not really, but it sort of is.
But it's not.
We have decided to do a pure Q&A session.
I don't know if it'll be pure.
Well, it will be just nothing. We're not doing anything else, are we? Apart from me giving you a Bros box set.
It won't be pure.
Okay, fine. So we're doing a Q&A. We went on our Facebook page. You went over to our Twitter and said, "Do you want to ask us any questions?" And you actually have quite a lot of questions.
Turns out people want to ask us shit.
Mad, don't it? Maybe we should add that into the show every week. Make the show 5 hours long every week.
Let's just do it occasionally, I think.
But we'll try and get through as many of them as we possibly can because we don't really do this. I don't think we ever have done this, apart, say, from sort of a 10-minute start of the last live show.
We did a very quick one
You were
for the
drunk, weren't you?
1 year anniversary show, but apart from
Not
that,
enough, really. Anyway, let's start. I'm going to start with this one, Renfrey, if you don't mind, from Tom Wilson, because I think this will be a good sort of entry into sort of a good kicking off point, I think. What is a typical day for you both? Do you both work full-time in the industry? And if not, is that your goal? Or is the journalism / podcast stuff more of a passion project? As I've heard you talk about some past employment situations, but if it's not rude, I'd like to know more. Above all, though, a sincere thanks, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to read that stuff out. Thanks, mate. You said some nice stuff, and I appreciate it. But that, Tom, typical day. Renfrey, do you have a typical day?
Nope.
Okay. Would you like to know my typical day?
Well, actually, I can probably do a rough approximation
of
what would roughly be a typical day.
And then we'll get to the other stuff after that.
I'm a bit of a night owl, so I might wake up at like 9:30, 10, get myself a coffee.
Yeah.
I work late, my friend. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
And then I get myself a coffee and like rub the sleep out of my eyes. And then I don't know if I'm doing Riot Act stuff, it'll be like sometimes I edit the show generally, or I might look out for like what albums are coming out because I tend to put the album review stuff together. There's lots of boring admin-y bits and pieces behind the scenes, like the website stuff and all that kind of thing. And I do the majority of that because you have an actual job.
I do, yeah. I do.
And I kind of took this on. I don't know. I sort of came to you with this project, didn't I? So I suppose I had the time to do it. So I sort of do all those bits and pieces. And then if there's any freelance opportunities, I'll try and do those. And then I don't know. I mean, there isn't a typical day for me at all, to be totally honest with you.
I've got a fairly typical routine that I stick to because of where I have to be in certain times. Actually, David S. Grott replied to that and said, "It seems like I don't want to talk about my job," which is not actually true. Yeah. It's never really come up before, and I don't mind it. And if that has come across, well, I'll talk about it. So my alarm goes off at 10 to 6 in the morning.
Never been up at that time.
And I usually, probably 3 times a week, I'll go to the gym for half an hour at about 6 o'clock.
Never heard of that before either.
Right, yeah. So that is what I want to do because I'm nearly 40 and I basically have to, just to look like this, I have to do that. So imagine if I did, oh God. So anyway, so I go to the gym for about half an hour. And that is one of the few times where I get a chance to usually listen to music that I haven't heard. That kind of early, you know. And if I don't, then bloody Good Morning Britain goes on. And I just listen to Piers Morgan like shuffling his neck about for half an hour or so.
Do you get up and is really, really heavy shit the first thing you put on?
No, not always.
I usually have to. was going to use the wrong word then. I usually have to gear myself up for that. So,
well, yeah, I mean, maybe. I think it depends what I'm listening to, what I've got to do. Like,
yeah.
So there are sort of variables to this, but basically, I will get up and probably try and listen to something that I've not listened to while I'm in the gym, and I usually do kind of, half an hour of cardio.
That would surprise me. I would have thought you'd have some sort of pumping.
No, because because at that time in the morning you don't really. I normally do like half an hour on an exercise bike or on a cross trainer at like 6:10 in the morning.
Paint us a picture.
Quite lightly, because you don't
wearing
really
lycra?
want to. No, just wearing shorts and a t-shirt, like
Just wanted to paint the image.
Go back, have a shower, get my shit together, feed bonjour, get out the door, and get the 7:30 train from Charlton into London Bridge.
Where's your gym?
Work.
Around the corner.
My gym is literally around. You know where the Starbucks is? This is going to be boring for everyone. You know where the Starbucks is?
Yes.
On the corner there.
Yes.
It's next door to that. Yeah. So, but actually, I'm a member of 2 gyms actually, because I go to gym at lunch as well.
Fancy.
Yeah. And then I go into work, and I start work at 8:30. I normally get into work about 10 past, 8:15, and I'm the first person in, which means I get 20 minutes, and that's when I do play something really, really fucking heavy. When I've got the office to myself, I will play something really, really heavy, and then I do my job. Basically, I work for an events company, and we make programs for events that are linked with charities. That's what I do, and through selling the programs, we make money, and
You think you're motherfucking Teresa?
I don't think I'm fucking Mother Teresa, but it's a cool job, because we get to go to the Brits, we get to go to like Teenage Cancer Trust concerts,
yes,
to the Wimbledon,
which is why we've covered some of those bits and pieces.
Yeah. So I get to do that as part of my job, and it's not obviously, it's not the type of music that we cover that much on here, and it's not the sort of thing I do. But it gets me out of the house, gets me to see Take That and Doves and stuff like that. Go to the Brits, go to some sporting events. And all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a cool thing to do, and it's a fun little office. They are really anal about what music you can play, which is not guitar music. Like the guy sits opposite me likes Elton John and Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson. That's it. The guy sits the other side of me just likes Pearl Jam and Dodgy and the Blue Tones and Coldplay.
Started so well.
The guy sits behind me just likes 80s funk and soul. So I have the Spotify. So trying to get all 3 of them to find something that all 3 of them like.
Oh God!
Trust me, it's not Black Midi. I'll tell you that much. But weirdly, they all like Idols. It's weird, isn't it? Because they've been in the news, I guess. But yeah, so
I'll Pearl Jam as well.
So I'll do that for a bit. Then we usually go to gym at lunch. Well, not even usually. I do. I go like 5 times a week at lunchtime. I'll go to the gym.
Is this question going to be the entire podcast?
It's fucking going on. Yeah, I know. And then I come home and either I do this, or I go and do something for Metal Hammer, or I do the other podcast that I do, the We Are the Road Crew, which you listen to. Is nice. Yeah,
it's not as good as this.
it's well, what is? And then occasionally, or I go to a gig, or occasionally I might get a nice evening where I can just stay in and watch the football, or my girlfriend comes around and I can watch Succession.
She has to be here for you to watch Succession.
Yeah. Or The Crown. We started watching The Crown.
Oh yeah, the new one,
with Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
Quite good.
You saw the Foy one, right?
Nah.
Why didn't you see the Claire Foy one?
Because I hadn't watched it, and she wanted to carry on watching the next one, so I just was like, okay, well, I'll watch this. It's not like you don't need to. You just go, oh yeah, you could pick that up from anywhere when it's about the Queen.
Everyone knows about the Queen.
Well, you know enough to kind of be able to go, oh, I kind of know what's going on here. Yeah, you do.
I can't remember if I've said this on the show before, but I went to drama school with Claire Foy. She was in the postgrad year when I was in the 3rd year, and she is a lovely human being.
Oh, that's good.
She's absolutely lovely. And
lovely.
Well done, Claire Foy, because she's doing really fucking well.
Doing all right.
But she's fantastic. So.
In terms of the other question about turning it into something else, well, I'll let you answer that.
What was the other question? What?
Well, do you foresee a time to build this into? I think someone else has asked a similar thing about the future of what you want to do with this podcast.
With Riot Act, okay. Well,
it's up to you, mate. You say whatever you need to say.
There's certainly drive to try and podcasting is still quite a new-ish medium in the grand scheme of things. I know there'll be people who'll be like, it's like 15 years old. I don't care. It's fairly new in the grand scheme of things. So I think a lot of people are still just, apart from like the top people like trying to figure out how to make it work and monetize it and stuff like that. And we've been involved in projects in the past that have totally fucked that up. And we've with Riot Act, we're trying to figure out a way to make everyone happy, and which is always a bad thing to try and do, and sort of be able to make enough money to sort of survive from it. But I don't really like using the terms like brand or anything like that, but that's always what people say, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, I'm pretty happy with my lot, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I think I've
we have
said
slightly different.
Yeah. And part of that is because, I'm fairly financially comfortable. And also, and that, which is obviously nice. And also, I've been involved with a few things before that have promised a lot and delivered very little. Do you know what I mean? So,
which is always something we've been very wary of.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird this because I think I've said this to you before. Like, I sometimes wonder if people are that invested in the show, and it's not really because I don't think the show is good. I think the show's I honestly think this is the best show that I've been involved in any regard, right? But I don't think we shout from the rooftops about how, hey, you're part of Team Rock, but hashtag Team Rock belong. That was a thing, wasn't it? Or you're the smartest audience in rock. You're the like we're gonna fucking take back the airwaves and all that shit. And I've never wanted to do that. I find that I think it's quite an obnoxious thing to do.
It's quite condescending as well.
Yeah,
I think.
it is. Yeah, and all it means is please go and do our job of promoting us for people, which is nice. But I mean, I don't want people to feel like if they don't listen to this, they're betraying us. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like they have to agree with every single thing we say. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sort of like, I wish I worked in the music industry all the time, because I had that with Team Rock. Yeah. And it turned out to be a fucking nightmare. I got that dream job when I got that breakfast show on Team Rock, and it was like, what? So for my job now, and I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to work in a shop. I don't have to go and do any other thing. I can just go in the morning, and for 3 hours I play records. And then in the afternoon, if Metal Hammer want me to go and interview someone, I can go and do that and get paid on top of that as well. Yeah. And they threw a absurd amount. I mean, that was the most money I'd ever been earning, and it was for this apparent dream job. And it turned out to be a disaster, a complete disaster.
Unfortunately, the reality of these things, I mean, working at the Independent obviously seemed like a dream job in a lot of ways on the outside. And there were a lot of things, mainly the personnel and the people, that made it a fucking shit show. And it was really difficult. And it was a constant sort of battle to get things on there, even when things were doing very well. And it was very difficult. So I suppose in some ways we've both been like somewhat burned by the music industry. Yeah. But I don't want to like...
But no one fucking owes you anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one owes anybody anything. No one owes... You don't owe... If you ever feel like you are, I don't know, whoever it is, you don't fucking owe any of us anything. I would rather people spent their money on going out and buying Her Name Is Khaled's record on vinyl than fucking gave. And I know you're probably going to be like, don't say that. But ultimately,
yes.
Like, if you can do both, that would be great. But, I don't want the people listening are not the people who should be giving us money. I think you can get sponsors. You can get, if you're good enough, people. If you're good enough, and then you go appeal to enough people. Unfortunately, rock music, guitar music, which I'm sure we'll talk about throughout this show, and we certainly will when we do the albums of the decade. It's dipping to kind of dangerously niche levels, and I think that's what's making it very, very different, very, very difficult for people to actually go. There's a committed audience here that we want to invest in, and I think that's quite difficult. And I think it's easy to we could fudge the numbers, couldn't we? People have done that before. We could fudge the number. But again, like, it will come back and bite you on the arse.
Yeah, I think. This sounds like I'm blowing smoke up our collective asses, but yeah, I think we have a level of integrity where we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So, and our numbers are growing all the time.
Well, that's actually somebody asked about the numbers as well, so we might as well.
Do you want to jump onto that? Okay.
Jump onto that. Let's see if you keep on talking. I'll see if I can find it. Hold on.
Our numbers have grown and are continue to grow steadily. So I do believe there is an audience out there for it, and we are enormously close to getting to that. There's a magical number which people say you need to get to before sponsors will properly pay attention.
Yeah, it's Dan Morgan says, how many listeners do you have on average a week? I mean, I don't actually know, but I do look at our chart placing on iTunes now and again, and we appear to be, at this point, as we sit, and from the last month or so, we appear to be the highest sort of independent UK based sort of rock and metal podcast, rock metal guitar based podcast than the others. I mean, you probably know that. You can probably think of a few others off the top of your head, but we appear to be
not really.
The Metal Home with the Metal Home podcast.
Oh yeah. Are we higher than them now?
Yep.
Oh,
usually, yeah. The other one we are. So that's.
I think,
and a few others like the Kerrang podcast would dip up and go down and stuff. Like Dan Picart's one, Matt's one. You know, they kind of drop in and out, but we seem to be on a sort of consistently, usually, above them. I don't know. I mean, that's all I know though. I don't really look at the stats and stuff. I was always a bit like, I was on the radio. People go, "Do you want to know how many people listen?" And I was like, "Not really," because if it's loads, I'll go, "Oh my god, it's loads," and if it's no one, I'll go, "Oh no, it's no one," and it will sort of affect you. So I tried to just go, let's just imagine that literally no one is listening.
And that's why you say some of the things that you do.
Yeah, exactly.
It is actually a little bit of a difficult question to answer because you have so many different platforms that we go out on now, including like YouTube, Spotify,
platforms,
SoundCloud.
more like.
No need. SoundCloud, blah, blah, blah. So, and then you need to... there needs to be a way that you can figure out if someone, for example, listens to the show on Spotify and then watches the YouTube one as well, that would be one listener, but they've listened to it twice, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And finding out those exact numbers is actually far more difficult than I imagined it would be, annoyingly. I don't really mind saying that in total, in November, we got just shy of 30,000 streams across all platforms.
It's quite good, though, isn't it? When you say it like that, it sounds like quite a lot.
Which is not bad. We are aiming to get... aiming to get another 10,000 onto that, basically. That's sort of the rough aim.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
But... So, my guesstimate...
It's that, without wanting to sound like a businessman, it's that Radiohead's Arcade Fire indie market that is proving a tough nut to crack, I think.
It's a pain in the fucking ass, yeah.
They don't want us with our Pantera vinyl.
Well, that's the same thing as it's always been. I mean, this is what I encountered at the Independent as well, it's a weird thing with stats. I remember... I might have said this before, but I remember I did an exclusive stream of the Nails album, and they were fucking furious about it. And it was the most popular culture article, either culture or music article on the Independent that month. It's like, how can you be furious about this? It got like 32,000.
We got the Foals when we sent the Foals album. Now I know Tom, who does Foals, who sent it through, is a kind of a mate of mine, and he was like, "Oh, when you did," he sort of said to me, "Do you want a Day to Remember album?" And I went, "No, not really, no." And he was like, "Oh, well, I mean, what else? I've got Foals." And I was like, "Foals, I loved it. Yeah, definitely want to do Foals." And getting that, he's like, "Oh, you did Foals and Elbow on the same week?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is not meant to be,
I think
Kerrang.
because of where we've come from, people expect us to do what we've always done, and we will continue to do what we've always done because we do both love that kind of music. As much as I moan about metal at the moment, but I do. I moan about metal because I fucking love it and I want it to be better.
Yeah.
I think you just need to keep hammering at that. indie nut, let's
Yeah,
say.
I think so. Yeah.
And we probably need to be slightly nicer to some of the indie bands as well. Bar the National, I feel like we've pissed on all of them.
No, not really. I mean, I was pretty nice about the Foals album. I thought that album was good.
Okay, yeah.
And there's been a couple of others. I think we need to get some of the smaller ones. It's probably the best thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a different sort of
Off
question.
mic conversation.
Yeah, actually, this is another guy who said, "Weigh yourself in a few." This is Jez, Chris, us Wood. Where do you see yourselves in a few
Chris.
years? Is
Hello,
it going to
Chris.
be just the podcast, or have you other areas of media and things like the live show formats that you want to explore? Obviously, with the YouTube and the quiz, you've already started doing that. Just keen to find out if there's an ambition outside of what you've already done. I mean, again, I'm very much like I sort of believe that nailing a podcast being a podcast is what you should do first. Like that's just, I think, again, we have slightly different views on that. I think I would like to make sure the podcast is perfect before sort of worrying about other extraneous things. And, I want it to be seen as a sort of really, as a cool, credible, boundaryless music podcast.
We definitely don't want to run before we can walk, and there are sometimes there's been elements that we've tried to introduce which none of this, we don't ever talk about any of this because it doesn't really need to be said, but bonus episode. Sometimes there's been stuff which has been really difficult to do, like doing the YouTube stuff initially was a pain in the fucking ass. And it's got better. It's still a bit of a pain, but we're kind of getting there with it and stuff. I mean, in terms, I would love to be able to do a live show 2 or 3 times a year, maybe eventually. But we have to make sure that there's enough demand for it and enough time. We can talk about this briefly, can't we, without getting too negative about it? But we quite recently did the quiz live because you guys were so enthusiastic about the first quiz that we did last year, which wasn't to an audience. We were very buoyed by the response to that first quiz, and everyone wanted to have it as like a thing that they could go to and see it being filmed and recorded. And I certainly don't want to give the impression. I mean, the quiz is going to be going out this time next week, and you should listen to it because it will be fucking great.
It's the thing, if you like Mock the Week, they sit there for 3 hours and they prepare everything.
Yeah.
So what you basically got was a live record of something, and it means that you get a kind of unedited. If you'd got the unedited version of last year's quiz,
I think you would have struggled.
You would have been like, "Oh, this is a right old slog." But it's and I've been to see, quiz shows and panel shows and stuff recorded before, and they keep you in there for a long time.
3.5 hours. Yeah.
A lot of it is absolute rubbish, right? And these are professional comedians, so not everything comes off, and the energy levels do rise and fall and drop and sap and stuff, but it's all in the edit of what they get at the end. That's kind of the most important thing to it.
I think we didn't consider, like, TV recordings will bring in audiences for free because effectively, as an audience member, you're doing the TV companies a favor because you're giving them a live laughter track. We had to charge money for the quiz. We didn't charge, it wasn't a silly amount, it was 10 quid plus like a small fee. I think it was about £11.30, £11.40 in the end. So it's not a disgusting amount of money or anything like that. But we had to charge money for people for what is a format which has long dips of not much hilarity because of the nature of it and the manner that it has to go together. And me and Steve had a big conversation on the phone about it afterwards, and we weren't sure if we could continue with that format in that way. I don't think the quiz is going to go away. You don't think that, do you?
No, I don't think that. I think it's it's a cool little extra thing to do, but ultimately maybe you will never be able to hear it recorded again. I think we
don't want to charge people money for something that is difficult to sit through, which is really like a really long thing. And to be fair, like, no one complained.
Yeah,
this is all us.
I
being
did the most complaining.
Yeah, this is all us being like uber harsh on ourselves. But we do that with pretty much everything we do. We have loads of discussions and talks, whether in person or on the phone, about like, are we doing too much? Are we doing too little? And we discuss the show a lot because we are both very passionate about it. So we want to make it as good as possible, and as a result, we are our harshest critics. So I think we try to get in there before anyone else will. Really.
Here's one from Brady Deeprose.
Oh.
From The Conjurers.
Yeah.
From The Cursing of the Metal Hands. He says, why is Renfrey so cruel? Someone else sort of asked this, Renfrey. What's your beef with Brady, really? Because I was always like, oh, there's that funny little kid from Conjurer. But from day one, pretty much, on this podcast, you've just mugged him off. I don't know why that is.
Brady.
Really. Not me, by the way. It's not me.
Life is cruel, so you just have to deal with it, don't you? It's Christmas time, so I'm just gonna be nice for once. Really, the sort of Brady bullshit came from Brady being a ridiculously nice man, and I just thought it was quite funny to claim that he wasn't, and he was an abhorrent little shit.
It's satire.
It's satire.
It's cracking
I'm
satire.
being Bawdy-Lyn.
Well,
There we go.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, in the spirit of Christmas, Brady is a lovely chap indeed. I can't remember if I've told you this story, but at the HMAs this year, Heavy Music Awards, Brady, this is the kind of nice guy Brady is. Brady's +1 was his mum. And he introduced me to his mum as this is the guy who calls me a cunt every week on his podcast, and I felt fucking terrible. His mum sees very nice, and Brady's very nice, and I just felt terrible about the whole thing. That's it, really.
Here's a good question. This is from Danny Randon. Has your album of the year ever changed retrospectively to a record that didn't even make the top 10 or 20 the first time around? I think that's a really good question, and I think it's something which may come up when we do. Someone actually did ask whether or not, I mean, just to sort of hammer this home, we're going to be straight after this starting recording our top 20 records of the decade, although I have a top 30.
I have a top 40.
Yeah. And there was one on there that I was like, oh shit, that means that this is my favorite record of 2012, and yet it was about number 12, 13 in my list of the year in 2012. So, I mean, unfortunately, I don't want to do a spoiler, so I can't tell you what it was. But yeah, I think there's probably a whole bunch of times when records stick with you that maybe you didn't think they were going to. I don't know if you've got any examples off the top of your head.
The only things that are in my mind at the moment are all the top 20 albums of the decade stuff that we've been doing, because I've been playing those albums over and over again at the moment. But yeah, undoubtedly there have been records, even the number one spot, where I've gone, oh, actually that record was far, far better than whatever I put into it. So yeah.
Even going like 20 deep though, because that's a pretty big jump to go from being like, I hadn't really.
But it'll be, in a lot of cases, it will be a record that I missed for whatever reason. And then, I don't know, if it's a record that came out in 2014, I don't hear it until 2015 in February or whatever. And I'm like, I mean, well, actually, fuck it. There's one example. Holy Fawn last year. We, like, the moment we came back from Christmas, I just sort of said to you, we're covering this album. It came out last year technically, but we're covering it. No one did anything on it, blah, 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 blah. And that album, I don't know if it would have been my number one last year, but it would have been in my top 3.
Yeah, well, I think it would have been in my top 3 probably last year as well.
Yeah, but
definitely top 5.
Yeah, well, Alex Fitzpatrick actually from Holy Raw told me about it when we were recording the Holy Raw special last year, and that was probably this time last year, 17th, 18th of December.
Really ill.
Yeah, so it was far. We'd already done albums of the year and all that kind of thing, and it's all I listened to all Christmas pretty much.
It's a good album, that.
Yeah,
good album. We got this to listen to, the old Bros.
Thank fuck for that. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Christopher Michael Ovens Snedden says, what is the artist or album that causes or has caused the widest difference in opinion between Steve and Renfrey? That's you and I, Renfrey. That's us two that he's talking about.
Oh, thanks for that reminder.
Yeah. I can't really think of one. I think maybe one that drops off the top of my head, or one that I know you love, and one that I really wasn't fussed about at all, is the Foxing record. Which I am absolutely kind of, I don't hate it. I'm just completely like nonplussed by it. I think it's absolutely, totally forgettable, to be honest.
Right.
And
Okay.
I know it's your favourite album of last year.
It was indeed, yeah. Yeah.
So that's pretty
That's
big.
quite a big one. I mean, the most obvious one to me is Architects, really. But then I feel like I have that with the rest of the record industry, the rest of the music industry, really, because there's very few people who don't like Architects for some reason. Although lots of bands who don't like Architects, so it turns out, because the amount of messages I got from bands after actually sort of coming out, if you will, and saying, I don't like Architects, was insane.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, Foxing, I think, is a good one. I went to see Mono over the weekend. I think I wouldn't I don't think you like hate Mono or dislike
I've only
it.
listened to one album.
Yeah, sure, I guess. But I put on the Riot Act Instagram.
Yeah, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, that you're an idiot. Yeah, because they are very loud and they're very, very dynamic, especially live. Yeah, I can't think of I don't know. King 810.
King 810?
Yeah.
Nah, I don't think I like him that much for it to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's why I said it in a
Yeah, I don't think
way. I don't know. But you love Architects, don't you?
I do love Architects.
And
yeah.
I'm completely meh on them.
You're completely bleh on them. That's what Sam does.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good at it.
No.
Mike D, if you could eliminate one band each from existence, their music and their subsequent influence, who would it be and why? This is an absolutely piss easy question for me, but you, Renfrew, I'm going to let you.
Motley Crue's the first one that came to mind. But I feel like I've answered that question before when I said Motley Crue.
Yeah.
So now I want to answer differently. So
Okay.
come back to me.
Linkin Park. All fucking day. Linkin Park.
Oh yeah.
Shit band. One good song. Paper Cut is the only song that isn't rubbish. And I mean rubbish. They're rubbish. Old fucking Joe Narn was on the internet, the Twitter earlier, going, the one thing I'm proud of my generation for is that we all hate the Beatles. It's like, yeah, you hate the Beatles and you fucking have reevaluated Linkin Park as something which isn't shit. Well, let me tell you, it's shit, right? Linkin Park is shit. And more importantly than the fact that they're shit, and let's not forget, they're fucking shit. But what the chasm that they have caused in heavy music will never be, that divide will never heal, I don't think. The cause of the point where people were like, yeah, I fucking don't like Korn. I don't really like this new metal thing. I don't like Deftones. But yeah, it's relatable to what's going on in metal right now. And then Limp Bizkit, no, actually, this is rubbish. Like, no, thank you. But then Linkin Park, to me, I think that's a point where everyone down tools. And either a load of new people, yeah, like you can go, hey, look how many new people got introduced to it. Yeah, and they went and formed Young Guns. Like, come on. And none of them did anything good. Oh, if it wasn't for Linkin Park, we wouldn't have Issues and Young Guns and, do you know what I mean? All these fucking, like, We Came as Romans and all these fucking terrible bands. And then it just made a bunch of grumpy old school metal twats run even further into the arms of, bullet belts and denim and leather and that really quite regressive. Like I like a lot of proper old school metal, but I don't just want metal to be that. I don't really want it to be that, and I don't really want it to be the extreme flip of it. And I think Linkin Park have played a massive part in fracturing metal and making it kind of go to those extremes. Like when you listen to deathcore, right? I was thinking about this the other day. Deathcore bands, you'd listen to them, and then you'd read what people would say online about them, like this is pussy emo shit, like, and you go, why? What? Just 'cause you've got short hair? I don't understand. Why? And the reason people did that is because that felt like there was a whole decade where people just listened with their eyes. And I think so much of that is because they heard Linkin Park and the bands after Linkin Park and just went, nah. And, I think we if it had led to the point where, metal became this massive thing for a very, very, very long time. But it didn't. It had a boom in 2001 for a few years. Then emo came along. Then you got a bit of like, Lamb of God and Killswitch Engage and all those bands are doing all right. None of them ever became as big as, Korn or Manson or System of a Down or any of those bands. Like, none of them ever made that kind of leap. And now it's fucked. The commercial, I think the long game for that has been appalling what it's done to the metal scene. Appalling.
Do you lay the blame entirely at Linkin Park, Speed?
I think Linkin Park are, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, Papa Roach, those bands, certainly those bands. I think that's what I kind of consider to be third, not Limp Bizkit, sorry, but from sort of Linkin Park, what I consider like third gen new metal.
New metal, yeah.
The Godheads and the Union Undergrounds and the when it got
Turn Me On, Mr.
well,
Gunman.
yeah, when it got well poppy and well frat boy and just like really fucking really lame, but Linkin Park were the biggest ones of those bands.
Undeniably.
And so many people go, I got into it through Linkin Park. And I'm sure there are a bunch of bands who are great who were like, I got into Linkin Park, and that's what set me off to listening to metal, yada, 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 all that stuff. But I would argue you probably would have found something akin to it anyway. And so much other bad stuff has happened. I'm not sure. Like, I'm trying to think of a band who I like. Someone like the dude from Suicide Silence going, we wouldn't have formed if it wasn't for Linkin Park. And it's like, that's great, and I like your band, but that ain't enough. I would rather have a world without Linkin Park and without Suicide Silence than what we've got right now.
Devil's advocate question: do you think we would have had that big boom in 2001 without Linkin Park?
I think it was already pretty fucking massive.
Seemed to be brewing already.
I mean, it was
didn't
pretty
chocolate starfish.
Yes, chocolate starfish.
That came out
Untouchables, White Pony.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the point. It's the
Toxicity.
Toxicity. It's the point where
Morning View.
It wasn't enough to sell. Yeah, it wasn't. Korn and Deftones and bands like that were selling 2 million copies, 1 million copies, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million.
I think Follow the Leader was something like 8 million.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Some of them sold a lot of money. You think a lot of copies. Like, you think how much Marilyn Manson sold a lot of records. Like, it wasn't just like Linkin Park came along and suddenly these bands who were selling 200. It wasn't like Nirvana, where it was everyone's selling 100,000 copies and then suddenly they're selling 13 million copies. Yeah. Linkin Park were already on the back of. It's just they suddenly sold 50 million copies rather than selling 10 million copies. Yeah. And that is,
it's
quite
massive.
Significantly larger. I mean, that is 5 times more.
It's still one of the biggest selling albums ever, isn't it? Hybrid Theory?
It sold I think White Pony in America only sold 1.25 million records. I say only, but sold 1.25 million
but
records. In comparison to what and they were Linkin Park were outselling Deftones while they were supporting them. It's fucking nuts. A load of people left in that London Arena show, and that was the point where I started going, you're leaving after this support band while to miss Deftones on White Pony. And the whole that I think people got really kind of antsy. I mean, I definitely got really shitty about that attitude, and I was like, no, I'm not having this. And
I'll be doing that at Bury tomorrow next week. Are you going to get shit with me?
Well, I'm reviewing it for Metal Hammer, so I'm going to stay, straight down the line.
I might watch a bit of Bury tomorrow.
Anyway, that's my answer. Linkin Park. Always.
I'm just to make it slightly more interesting than Motley Crue, I'm going to throw in Dianvid, I suppose, because they're just fucking shite, aren't they?
Okay.
But that's the only reason.
Fair enough. Fair. That's really good reason.
What have they contributed to music?
Just a laugh, just a bit of colour, just a bit of fun, just a bit of one of those things you look at and go, oh, they're not boring. Do you know what I mean? This is not boring.
No, they're not boring.
I would say Linkin Park are boring.
Yeah, but
they are actually boredom.
But boring doesn't tend to I could name loads of boring bands like Keane and fucking The Killers and all that kind of thing, but they don't really infect my psyche like Diane.
I see that as a positive. I have to be honest.
Well, that's why we're two different people.
We are actually two completely different people. Tony Bliss, is there any chance we can get Renfrew to watch The Office so he can appreciate all of Stephen's quotes? Yeah, please. I mean, come on.
The UK Office.
The Office. There's only one The Office.
Oh
It's
yes,
called
I
The
forgot.
Office.
I forgot to. I'm not allowed to talk about the US one.
That's The Office in the American workplace, which is not the same thing.
Okay.
It's a big pile of crap.
Right. Okay. There's 2 seasons. Is that right? 2 series.
Series we call it, and a Christmas special, and it is basically perfect.
Well, I watched. So one of my first ever girlfriends loves The Office, and I watched the first 3 episodes of the second series,
Probably
and
why we got
find
on
it
so well. Similar. So
found it mind-numbingly boring. So
You did?
I
You
did. Yeah.
Oh well, I'm sorry you hate comedy, Renfrey. I don't understand it. As your child, Billie Eilish slagged it off recently. She called it trash. Called
I mean,
the Office trash.
I don't feel passionate enough to sort of diss it or anything like that, and I'm more than happy to admit that I just don't really get it. But I don't.
What? How can you not get it?
What? I don't.
Do you not understand?
I don't think there's anything to get though. That's the other thing. I just
do you
don't find it
mean?
funny. It's not. I don't find it funny. There's a lot of comedy around that time, especially that was massive. Which
Like Brass Eye.
yeah, Brass Eye's fantastic, but Brass Eye is well above The
No,
Office.
it's not.
Come on.
They're the best 3 shows ever are The Office, Arrested Development, and Brass Eye. They're the best 3
I
television programs
100% agree with you with the last 2. Arrested Development, I would go as far as to say is my favourite comedy
Well,
thing ever.
Let's not concede that seasons 4 and 5 of Arrested Development are fucking woeful. So that's what brings it down. It's terrible. And also it's American in it. It's got that like Arrested Development is like, I'm not saying off Arrested Development. It's great, but that is a very American type of humour.
Yeah, but I've always been into
We're
American
funny.
humour.
We're funnier than them.
I've always been into American humour more than British humour. I don't really know why. I just have.
I mean, they've done it's brilliant. Larry Sanders Show, amazing.
I fucking love. I mean, it probably looks ancient now compared to other things, but like I still love the original Seinfeld.
Yeah,
You know,
Seinfeld's
like
good, right?
the they did everything first. You know, am I going to watch it? I don't know. I've got a
Well,
lot
I
of
just
things I
can't
want to
even
watch.
to believe that people. I am really weirded out by people that don't like The Office because I just think you must look at that and go, "Oh, what's wrong?" People go, "I don't know what I'm supposed to be laughing at." That to me makes me think like, so you think his behaviour's all right? You're looking at it going, "What's wrong with that? What's wrong with him?"
No.
pointing it like that and going, "Monkey,"
It's
and then
not-
it being really awkward, and you go, "Well, that's fine behaviour." And I think that makes you.
It's
like a real
not that
knob.
I think it's fine behaviour. I just don't think it's funny. It's just like that. I don't.
But haven't you met so many fucking people like that?
I haven't worked in many offices.
It's not about the Office. They're everywhere. These people. They're
No.
literally everywhere. You could do.
not really.
Fucking hell. Anyway, I'm gonna move. on.
Do I just sit here blankly when you do loads of office references and they just go
Yes.
over my head?
Yes.
Sorry.
All the fucking time.
I like the people
for
in the
10,
office.
four.
I like Martin Freeman. He's good.
Yeah,
he was
Tim
a
from
Hobbit
The
once.
Office.
I liked him from The Office. Yeah. That's Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast.
Yeah.
I like tall gangly man.
Stephen Merchant.
Stephen. No, I don't like Stephen Merchant. He annoys me.
Oh, Mackenzie Crook.
Mackenzie Crook. I don't like Ricky Gervais or Stephen Merchant.
Well, see, I don't like Ricky Gervais anymore. That thing he
Drives
did
me
last year, that
crazy.
fucking absolutely terrible thing. It's got these amazing reviews. What was it called?
Is it
it was
the-
on Netflix.
I know the one you
God.
mean, yeah.
Afterlife. Oh God, it was so bad. It was so mind-blowingly bad.
Do you know
I
what,
absolutely
though?
hated it.
This is probably going to blow your mind. You're probably going to throw something at me. I do think Extras is really good.
Extras is great, but how can you think Extras is great and not like The Office? It's the same fucking humour, but just amped up. Like, you such a fucking God. Why don't you go and fuck America in the arse?
I'd like to try.
Yeah, well, you should.
The whole of America?
Yeah, all of it.
Ugh, I might not have time to do the podcast, but I'll give it a go.
No, good. So let's just move on. I'll talk about music instead. Doug Gray asks, trade-off of the year and why? Was it because it was the most surprising, sparked the best conversation, or just because it was the best one you listened to? I'm going to give a shout out to something which happened accidentally but felt like amazing serendipities when we did the Verve's Urban Hymns and Hootie and the Blowfish Crack
Yeah,
Rearview Mirror,
great
which
shout.
was just, I'd like to do more stuff like that because that really felt like it was so much more than just the music. It felt like it was a sort of this summation of 2 completely different cultural things happening at a very similar time and trying to work out why one didn't really get the other.
Yeah.
And that, like the kind of the anthropology of music and why music connects with people is something which I've always been really, really interested in.
Led for a very interesting discussion, indeed.
And when you look at the numbers of
Don't say so myself.
yeah, and what you look at the numbers of what happened with Hootie and the Blowfish in America and how it just did, but I mean particularly Hootie and the Blowfish and how it did not connect in the UK at all, and how, you know, Dave Matthews Band and Matchbox 20 and all of those bands have never really connected in the UK, and trying to kind of work out why that was when they had this incredible thing in America. And then you look at why Oasis and The Verve and, you know, Pulp like just couldn't connect in America.
Something to do with cheese and cynicism, isn't it? So Americans, yeah, this is very broad, and I don't think we should go into it now because we've got other questions.
And we have done it as well.
And we have done it, but like, you know, the cheesy, America just love that sort of cheesiness, and we're a bunch of cynical assholes, really, basically.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's broadly the answer, but you could talk about it for hours.
You
But,
could, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I would have to say Batman. I mean, Batman print soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, that got us on Wikipedia. Thank you for people who did that. It only lasted about a week, but there was a glorious week where the whole world who looked at that Wikipedia entry knew that I masturbated to the Prince Batman soundtrack, which is not even true. I've never ever done that in my life. That was really good fun. And I have to, I'm eternally grateful for you introducing me to Talk. I have to, obviously I knew who they were and I was aware of them, and I probably would have got around to them at some point or other. But just being sort of, just that little push was all I needed. And, you know,
I like doing sort of I mean, I think particularly doing quite well established artists that one of us aren't familiar with.
Yeah.
Like that is called Sugar by Copper Blue by Sugar.
Yes.
Talk.
I was talking to someone about
Damien Rice. You know, The Drift by Scott Walker. Getting to kind of really go into a Titanic Riot as well. I like the reaction to a lot of people going, I listened to it, and it was people who like obviously
masturbated to it.
like noise music go, right, you pussies. I quite like that reaction as well. So yeah, I think it's been a good one. I've enjoyed doing that. I think there have been times where me or you just go, oh god, that thing you definitely haven't heard of before, and then you just go, oh, this is a pretty good hardcore album that I've never heard of, and that's it. But when you get the sort of big hitters, unfortunately you and I have mostly heard most of the big stuff.
I don't know, I think you'd be surprised. Maybe we need to have a sit down and just go through bands one day. But,
but I do like doing that. I'm going to pick one off Twitter.
Nice.
So don't...
At Riot Act Podcast.
Yeah. Hidden Mothers say, who is your favourite band that you didn't know existed before 2019? Considering I didn't know Clipping or Her Name is Calla existed before we reviewed their albums, and they've ended up being my sort of joint first favourite album of the year, that's a pretty easy one for me, so I have to say them. Really.
Oh god, stuff I've been listening to that didn't come out this year. There is a wonderful EP which actually may well be the thing that I have listened to the most this year, and I felt internally guilty about it because it came out last year by a band called Boy Genius. I was thinking of giving it to you on Trade Off, I don't know, maybe one day, but basically it is 3 amazing female singer-songwriters, Julian Baker, Phoebe Bridgers and Lucy Spraggan, I want to say, and they just got together and did a 6-song EP, and I listened to it over and over and over and over and over again. I've listened to it so much this year.
It's your vibe this year, isn't it? Sort of sad.
It really has.
Singer-songwritery thing.
Yeah, it really. I mean, you know, to be honest, that's going to be down to a lot of the stuff that's happened in my life.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it is kind of weird how I've kind of, I feel like I've not. I was wondering if this is just like me getting older, but maybe I suppose with the things that have happened in my life this year, like. I go to put Dillinger on, for example, and I'm like, I adore Dillinger Escape Plan. Like, they are probably top 10 band for me of all time. But, you know, I've barely listened to Dillinger this year because it's just not felt appropriate to what's happening in my life.
I think, you know, the heavy music that I've listened to this year has been a different type of heavy. Yeah. And I had a discussion with someone I put out on Twitter the other day, 2019, great year for music, bang average year for metal. And maybe a lot of that is in my head, that, you know, a lot of albums that have been really great have just not really connected with me. You know, albums that have been very, very well reviewed, like, you know, the Blood Incantation album, everyone wanged me about listening to that, and I would listen to it and I was like, yeah, it's all right. You know, people seem to really love the Killswitch album, not for me particularly. People seem to, you know, have gone mad for the Cattle Decapitation album. I have gone back to that a couple of times. I think Cattle Decapitation are great. Like, I love Cattle Decapitation. I think they're brilliant. And I do think the new album is actually, it felt like we just kept going, well, look at that Cattle Decapitation album, look at that for a few weeks. And it's a really, really good album.
It is. And I picked the wrong target.
It's definitely one of the better ones. I mean, I think, you know, maybe with another month of it in my ears, it actually might have crept into one of those kind of low 20 spots in my albums of the year, actually, because at this point, having listened to it, you know, quite a lot, I do really, really like it. I still will stand by the fact that I don't think it's as experimental as it has been made out to be by a lot of people. This kind of experimental masterpiece, I think they've done that, and I think this just feels like a bit more of a consolidation until you get to the last track, the last couple of tracks where, you know, they do go well melodic.
I was talking to some members of Holy Roll bands on Friday night, and they absolutely adore it. And
it's a good album.
Like, it's good.
It's a really good album.
But people are bonkers for it, and I'm just like, meh.
The Knock Loose record. I mean, we didn't review that.
No,
you know, like that has been
can be asked.
massively kind of like, wow, Knock Loose album. And I listened to, you know, I mean, I gave that a very good review at Metal Hammer. Okay. And then I went back and listened to it recently, and I was just like, I actually thought it was good, and now I just think it's all right. Like, I don't get what the fucking fuss is about. To be perfect.
But I think this is the thing with music, and this is why this is actually one of the challenges with reviewing music, because I've in a weird way I found it difficult to review the heavier releases this year because of the stuff that's been going on, and like and I suppose going to very emotionally open.
Well, that feels heavier to me as well now.
Well, yes. It resonates with me in a manner that it hasn't done in the past. And, you know, I don't want to sort of maintain, you have to have tragic things happen in your life in order for this music to resonate with you. It will help, though. My God, will it help? And I have found myself just, I guess, mellowing out a little bit this year, just because that's what's felt most appropriate, really. Still listen to heavy shit. I mean, I loved Saint Pierre and I loved Cold Luna and like bloody blah. But yeah, that has a lot of that stuff is stuff that's really, really resonated with me this year. So
yeah. See, I feel like I've actually listened to heavier stuff that's just a different type of heavy. I would say Linguini, which I have barely listened to be fair, but something like that.
Well, Swans, I think, is quite a good example.
Scott Walker, you know. Yeah. I actually think that stuff is far heavier than any death metal band.
I agree.
So, you know. Donald Kennedy, this is a good question. Both of your current home hi-fi and setups and headphones. So, a tech question, Renfrey.
Okay.
I can tell you exactly what my home sort of stereo setup is. I have got a lot of speakers in my house, haven't I?
Yeah, you do.
I've got quite a lot of speakers in my house. My main thing is I've got a Denon turntable. I've got a Tangent Ampster amp connected to Dali speakers. Now, I did have some trouble getting some good speakers, but I was using a Bose, what are they called? That Bose speaker that I've got, a kind of Bluetooth, a big Bluetooth Bose speaker that you could just plug into it. And I was like, this is a waste of fucking time. So I just never listened to my records. I was like, what's the point? There's no point. This sounds shit. And it was this year, talking about doing the Brits. I went to the Brits, and then the next day I came in really, really hungover. And me and the guys I work with were so hungover that we didn't do any work. We just went and ordered 150 chicken wings in the pub around the corner. And we ate 150 chicken wings. And I wandered into Richer Sounds hungover.
Oh, yes.
With like my sort of bonus from that, and went, I have a need to buy everything, please. And I just bought an entirely brand new.
Really?
He gave me a really good deal on all that stuff. It was still pretty expensive. I mean, it's the most money I've spent on anything for a fucking long time. But it was absolutely worth it because it sounds fucking lovely. And now I've got a spare room in my flat, which I just sort of sit and listen to music in, and that's pretty much all I do in that room. Well, it's all I do in that room, actually.
My stereo system I bought a really long time ago, and I can't actually remember. I think I bought it in like 2006, so it's like 13 or 14 years old. But it's a Cambridge Audio amp. I cannot remember the make. It's is it T? I've got a couple of sets of speakers as well. I think they're TDK speakers, and then a Marantz CD player. Hello. I can't remember what my vinyl player is at all, to be totally honest with you. And I have to say, I mean, I've kind of said it on this show before, but I don't play vinyl that often at all, really.
What's the reason for that?
I am often doing stuff to music, and the whole idea of getting up and having to I so rarely get time to just sit down and listen unless I'm doing it for work, in which case I won't be listening. It's very unlikely I'll be listening to a vinyl. I'll be listening to a MP3 that's been sent through to me. So and it is so rare that I get the opportunity to just sit down and just listen to an album and take it all in. I would love, unless I'm reviewing it, and I'll be reviewing it on a different format. I would love to be able to do that more, but unfortunately my life just does not work that way at the moment. And it's just a pain in the fucking arse having to turn it over all the time. I've never been particularly wedded to the sort of analog warmth style of vinyl because I didn't grow up with that stuff. I grew up in the digital age with CDs.
Here's the thing, that, and this is what I found. So I started collecting vinyl 2-3 years ago, maybe. 2 years ago. And the reason I got a record player in the first place, and I got a really crappy one, my ex-wife got me a really shitty one because what does she know about anything, the idiot? And and she basically I this here, I've got a Social Distortion vinyl there, and Jonathan Seltzer at Metal Hammer went, "Can you review the Social Distortion box set?" And I went, "Oh, absolutely, I'd love to." He's like, "I'll send it to you. It's vinyl. Do you have a record player?" And I went, "No." So I just got a really cheap record player, and then I was like, "Oh, this is cool. You know, I should collect records." And you know, I've got fucking loads of CDs. I don't even have a CD player. That's why I want for Christmas, a CD player. And so then, you know, I had this scenario where I was like, well, I need to get the stuff. And I never really got a very good record player, and I never really had enough money to get something good. And so when I could afford it, I was like, right, fuck it. I am actually going to get something that hopefully, because it was, you know, like I said earlier, it was absolutely pointless me listening to records. And what I've realized is that it is pointless you buying records, no matter how good your turntable setup is. There is no point you buying records unless you're buying the right records. I think that's what I believe. So what I've got here is 2 reissues, basically. For those of you not watching the YouTube channel, I've got Mummy's Little Monster by Social Distortion reissue, Pantera's Great Southern Trendkill reissue. In the middle, that's £4. U2, The Unforgettable Fire, right? Now the other 2, way more expensive than that. That £4 second-hand copy of U2's The Unforgettable Fire sounds fucking amazing on my record player, right? And it genuinely does sound different. I've got, like, Emily, my girlfriend, paid £80 for Led Zeppelin for a second generation pressing, or second whatever it's called, pressing of Led Zeppelin 4, which is her favourite album. You put that on my stereo, and it genuinely sounds like you've never listened to it before. You've never fucking listened to it before. And I know that sounds like a wanky thing to say. It's absolutely true. That fucking Pink Floyd, The Wall, that my dad's got, right? He bought it the day it came out, and then he's given it to me. That, on my stereo system, sounds better than I've ever heard. You know, you listen to the deluxe, reissued, remastered version on your fucking whatever. Like, I've got 2 Sonos 1. I've got Sonos 1 in the corner here. I've got a Sonos 1 in my bedroom, and I've got, like I said, a Bose Bluetooth speaker in my kitchen as well. You can put The Wall on that Sonos, which is, you know, like, oh, it's the best high quality MP3 sound, blah 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 blah. It sounds good, right? But if you put, it sounds nothing like how it sounds on my with that record on that turntable, with a really good turntable, a really good amp, really good wires, and, you know, like, I invested in quite good wires. I invested in and good cable, and I've got good, you know, and it's a bit of a sort of starter set, but you really, really can tell the difference. So all the stuff that I buy now is basically second
Old
round.
shit.
Old shit.
Yeah.
Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Sounds
Yeah.
fucking amazing. But I got the Clipping album, which I love. You put it on vinyl. It doesn't really sound any different.
That's the thing. I mean,
Like, it only sounds good because those speakers are really good.
yeah, exactly. I think some people, some of you will probably realize this, but a lot of things are mastered specifically. You're meant to do a specific master for vinyl and then a specific master for digital, and a lot of studios do that and a lot of bands do that, but a lot of them don't bother, and because if you have two separate masters, it costs more money, and most. I was about to say most things will be mastered for digital now, but I don't actually want to make that assumption because
Something like I got the Fragile, the 9 Inch Nails.
Yes,
Fragile.
so those
That-
9 Inch Nails reissues.
Yeah.
Trent Reznor, being the mixing mastering mastermind that he is, actually sat down and remastered them for vinyl, so they sound really warm and
They
really
sound
great.
really
They
good.
sound amazing, but so many, even when it's reissued on vinyl. 9 times out of 10, they just won't bother because it's usually a record label trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah, and
I'd be curious to know. I'd be curious to know what the Great Southern Trendkill sounds like. I can't imagine because that was released in 1996 when vinyl was not considered a big deal at all. And it's fine that you own it. Obviously, it's a fucking amazing record. But like, is that version better than the CD version? I'm guessing it isn't.
No, not really.
Yeah,
No.
so-
And the thing is what it's only since I've had. I mean, it's February that I bought that setup. It's only since and actually shout out Matt Stocks from Life and Stocks, who's been on the show a whole bunch of times because Matt said
Hello,
to
Matt.
me, "Don't waste your money on new vinyl. Don't waste your money on it."
Yeah.
And it's a really, really good piece of advice. Because I was like, no, man, it'll sound really good. It sounds much better. And for a little while, because my speakers sounded so much better than any other, like the Sonos one, do you know what I mean? It sounded like now, when I first got it, I was like, wow, look how clear and nice it is. But actually, in comparison to a proper stereo setup, it's nowhere near as good. Nowhere near as good. So I was getting like, the fucking putting the Satanist on and going, listen how great it sounds. Listen how fucking great it sounds. And actually, it was not the vinyl, it was the stereo.
Yeah.
It was the speakers that were making it sound better.
Yeah.
And it's only when you put on those old ones that you realise, I still will buy, I'm still going to buy whatever on vinyl because I think there's a lot of times you want to support the bands that you're, like new bands, you want to buy their albums to support, like, you want to support that band. But do you need to buy those albums
exactly.
to have the best thing? Not really.
Yeah.
And especially if you're running it through a Sonos or a fucking,
It's
Bose
totally pointless.
Bluetooth, but it's an absolute waste of time.
Yeah.
Complete and utter waste of time. So I don't want to sound like a snob or anything, but that's...
We sound like snobs every week on this show.
yeah.
It's fine.
Here she is. Bonjour. And what about you, headphones wise, Renfrey?
I have a pair of Sennheiser Momentum M2s, I think, and they are nice. You didn't get on with them, did you?
Don't like them so much, no.
But I like them. They're fine.
I bought a
You've
pair
got
of them.
much nicer though ones though, haven't you?
I got
Bastard.
a pair of Jabra Elite 6 something. Mate, I've suddenly found myself with like 19 fucking pairs of headphones.
Can you give me a pair then? Would be nice.
Oh, bonjour. So anyway, that's what I got. The headphones are really good, and those Bose headphones are actually really good.
Okay.
So yes. Speaking of other extra stuff, Oscar K on Twitter says best books about music, any genre. Any genre of book.
Immediately, I mean, sorry, this is the Pearl Jam fan in me, but the Pearl Jam 20 book that they released for their 20th anniversary is fucking incredible.
Taking that theme, run with it. My favourite book of all time ever, and I'm pretty sure I've said it before, but my favourite book ever is Everybody Loves Our Town.
That's a
by Mark
fantastic
Young,
book.
which
Absolutely.
is all the grunge bands.
Yeah.
There's also, which is a great kind of, someone said, Our Band Could Be Your Life by Michael Azerrad, which is brilliant. It's about the kind of 80s explosion of punk and underground movement in America, and then that leads on to Everybody Loves Our Town. There's a gap after that because there is another one which kind of picks up on the sort of New York Strokesy scene and LCD Sound System and that, which I bought and I haven't actually read yet. But there's a gap there. There's a gap from sort of 94 to about 2002 that nobody's written that book. I want to write that book.
Well, get on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the encouragement.
This is music related, but then not specifically about like a band or anything like that. But Oliver Sacks's Musicophilia is a fascinating insight into the psychology around music. And there was a film with Robert De Niro and Robin Williams in 1989, I think it was released, called Awakenings, where Robin Williams effectively plays Oliver Sacks. And it sort of looks at how like sometimes music is used to like bring patients out of comas and stuff like that. It's just a fascinating read. There's a book about the piracy. I can't remember what it's called.
Okay,
I'll try and put a little list up because I had not seen that question beforehand. So, but yeah, I'll try and put a list up. That's all right. Yeah. I'll put a list up of cool
fair
stuff.
enough. This is quite a good one. I'm going to make. It says, "What albums?" This is Rob Johnston. What albums were you a bit too nice on when you were on the previous podcasts? But I'll just say a bit too nice in general. Like, have you ever reviewed something and gone, "I'm going to give this a bit more of an easy ride for whatever reason"? I definitely think I did and have in the past for sure. I could probably name a whole bunch of them off the top of my head.
You go.
Yeah, well, I mean, Five Finger Death Punch. I thought being nice to Five Finger Death Punch was probably made sense because they were going to be the big band that came through. So I do sort of still think that. And I did look at them and go, they have mobilized so many people that to kind of shit on them feels like I didn't want to be seen as being like shitting on them for the fact that, you know, they got big or whatever. I don't really know. But I mean, I do think their music is fucking woeful. I mean, I've actually got their new album is heading my way for a Metal Hammer review. And obviously you have to judge it on, I've reviewed three Five Finger Death Punch albums in Metal Hammer, and I've never given them like 2 or 1. I've never given them an absolute kicking, and I never would go into something thinking I'm going to give this band a fucking kicking. Do you know what I mean? But I think I probably have made out at times that I am more kind of okay with Five Finger Death Punch than I really am, because I do think their music is dross. I just try and, you get in that headspace when you review stuff from Metal Hammer. I think I've said this before. I get in a very different headspace when I get sent something from Metal Hammer, where I kind of put myself in the position of a fan of that band, or as a kind of the general reader of Metal Hammer. I feel like the tone of the magazine and is important. So I feel like you have to kind of, you have to consider the tone. You have to consider the tone of that. If I turned around and reviewed Five Finger Death Punch and said, "You fucking idiots, this is awful. Go and listen to Nick Cave, or go and listen to The National, or go and listen to Spirit of Eden," they'd go, "Okay, well, you can't ever write for us ever again because that's not what this magazine is."
Yeah. You've got to think of your audience.
Yeah, so I think you do have to consider the audience, and you know, the people who like Five Finger Death Punch, will they like that? Or the people who are on the fence about Five Finger Death Punch, will they like that? It's all about, you know, sort of taking your own ego out of it a little bit. Avenged Sevenfold are another band, I think, who I don't hate Avenged Sevenfold. I mean, I think they've had some pretty good records over the years.
When they do it well, they do, like I do think City of Evil is great. I thought The Stage was great.
Yeah, The Stage was good actually. Yeah, but then, you know, Hail to the King, I thought was bloody. Although I've gone back to that and actually like it a lot more than I thought I did. But in general, they just always felt like they used to feel like quite a sort of icky band. Do you know what I mean? Like their opinions and them as the way they behaved and stuff did always feel a bit like a bit gross. Do you know what I mean? So I always had a bit of a problem with them with all that. You know, like T-shirts with the American flag on the back, like "Love It or Die" and all that sort of shit. I was like, oh, go away. But I interviewed Matt Shadows and he was fucking lovely.
Okay.
Yeah. So probably not them, actually. I don't know why.
I'm struggling with this one a little bit. I suppose when I was at the Independent, one of the things that was brilliant about it is I was kind of lucky that I had the freedom to cover whatever I wanted, and I kind of made a decision quite early. I didn't really review stuff at the Indie. I did more features and interviews and stuff like that. So because I didn't have to review stuff, I didn't really review stuff during then. And then really, I mean, the beginning of my reviewing career, quote unquote, has probably been like the last 18 months, truthfully. And I don't know if that's enough time to really think, oh, have I got anything, have I been overly harsh on, Dinosaur Pile Up? Don't know. Still need to go back to it, listen to it. I mean, maybe one day I'll find that. But no, it's a bit, because the actual specific reviewing stuff I've not been actually technically doing for that long. It's actually a little bit difficult.
I'll tell you a good one actually. The first ever record I was ever given to review for Metal Hammer was a Drowning Pool record, right? And I thought to myself, right, this is going to be this is, even people who are into that sort of thing, this is shit. Even by the low standards of Drowning Pool, this is fucking shit, right? Absolute shit. And I listened to it and I thought, fucking hell. But I thought it was my first review. I can't just go 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. Do you know what I mean? I can't absolutely destroy something first time round. So I gave it 5. I get like bang in the middle, and I just went, old school fans will probably all that crap, right? And I was like, oh no, and I was really like, I basically bottled it.
You fudged it.
I fucking bottled it. I should have gone to Jonathan, like, here you go, Jonathan. This is what you're going to get from me. It's going to be outright just hostility to band. It wouldn't have made any fucking difference really, because it's not like Drowning Pool fans in their droves sort of like driven down to the Metal Hammer offices and kick the door in or anything. So I don't know why I did that, but I did do that. So yeah, I think Drowning Pool are probably one that would be. Do
you want to apologise to Puddle of Mud for the kicking you gave their covers album?
No, not at all. I think I was probably too nice, if anything. Calling it the worst thing that's ever happened, it's probably too nice. Fraser McIntosh, you created the Riot Act Venn diagram on episode 0. Does this still represent your show, or would you change it? No, I don't think I'd change if anything. No, probably not. I think
only tweaks here and there. I mean, did we do an indie?
We did, yeah. And it was, it spawned the Pixies indie.
Oh, yeah, of course.
REM. Was I can see, Stone Roses. Stone Roses, will I keep the Stone Roses in? After reviewing Ian Brown's album, I don't know. And I think the kind of newest thing we had in indie was, I went for LCD Sound System. I don't think that actually got in, but that was, and you went for Arcade Fire. Did Arcade Fire get in?
No, I can't remember who I went for. I think I would at this point, actually, having gone back, I've gone right back to Arcade. In the last year, I've listened to Arcade Fire quite. I really love Arcade Fire. Okay.
I think they're great. I think I probably would put Arcade Fire in now. Although they're no newer than LCD Sound System either, are they? So
I think when we put that Venn diagram together, amazingly, I had never heard The National at that point. And, now, I've only sort of heard 3 or 4 of their records now, but based on those 3 or 4 alone, I'm like, they probably deserve a place in there. Although I'm easy to find, hadn't come out at that point, obviously, which is my favourite. I don't know. I'm sure there'd be tweaks.
Might have been elbowed out of the hardcore section at this point after that last record. Although that record's so important that I know what you're going to say, and you're probably right. But yeah,
I won't say it then.
But
I am right.
Yeah, no, I feel pretty. It was a fairly good list overall.
Yeah. It was any regrets about letting me put Muse in the prog section?
Oh fuck! Always, yeah.
Even with the new Muse album being pretty fucking horrendous, I still don't, for the reasons that I said at the time. They have made prog music in the modern times a stadium thing for the average Joe and Jolene. So and I think that's important, so fuck it.
Yeah, it's pretty important. Yeah. Thomas Power, is the ginger nut the best tea biscuit?
No.
Chocolate
digestive.
Don't think so. Yeah,
you got to have chocolate digestive.
Got to have chocolate on, haven't you? Yeah. Anything with chocolate on is the best. Anything.
I was discussing this with a friend last night, and she was saying that like the chocolate part, the thing with dipping chocolate into tea is then it sort of comes off and like all goes dribbly at the bottom.
Yeah.
But then when you finish your tea, you got a little chocolate kick. Ooh.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you. I don't really dip biscuits in my tea.
What the fuck? Why?
No, I just
Not.
don't. I'm over it.
Do you know what though? The best biscuit and liquid combination is Oreos and milk.
Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
fuck
time. Yeah, big time. I hope that's answered your question.
Oh, although actually, sorry, this friend who I was talking to did say that the good thing about the ginger nut is it keeps its integrity and its shape within the tea. Hence, why some people would argue that. But I don't want the integrity and shape kept. I want the dribbly bits at the bottom and then.
Yeah, don't really like ginger nuts. They're crap, I think. Dan Morgan, who's been your best and worst interviewees?
Oh, okay. Well, best is relatively easy.
Is it?
Well, I've got a few, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I've interviewed Jason Allen Butler a few times from Let Live and Fever 333. He's always excellent. I would say Devin Townsend is an absolute
I was on the phone.
laugh.
I was on the phone to Devin about 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
The Hammer.
He's so honest. He's so open.
Yeah, he was great.
Jamie Lemon is just a fucking dream.
Yeah, Jamie Lemon's hilarious.
You don't have to do any work at all with Jamie. Frank Turner, great to interview. Like really, it's obviously a very divisive guy for a lot of people, but like he often gives very thoughtful, very intelligent answers. Really listens to your questions, and I've really enjoyed interviewing Frank over the years. Yeah, do you want to go?
Yeah. For me, there's a few. I mean, is it best or ones that were you most like, wow? There's been a few that have been great. One of my favorites is Eddie Hamida, who I spoke to on the back of their very divisive self-titled record. And it's good when bands should be able to accept criticism.
Yes.
I know if you're Matt Tuck, you can't, but that's fine. But a band should be able to. We'll get to that in a second. But you should be able to accept criticism. You should be able to kind of justify. And I don't mind bands kind of doing whatever they do, and then when you interview them, as long as they don't kick their fucking toys out the pram and have a paddy about it. And but he was absolutely willing to have a conversation and think and talk to me about all of the very different things that they had done on that.
I do remember that. I'm not even a Suicide Silence fan, and I found that a really fascinating interview.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. I spoke to Mike McCready about the reissue.
You put him in
Mad
one of your
Season.
best. Is he that?
He was. Well, I'll tell you what it was. Right, is that I'd done about four interviews for Metal Hammer at that point. One of them was the first one I did was an Italian band called Nero de Matra, who were kind of released a really great, Gojira-esque sort of genty, like sort of groove metal record, really, really good. And that was the first interview I did. And then they gave me Dale from Malefice, Monty from Heights, and Rusty from Brotherhood of the Lake. So I'd just done basically like one band who I didn't really know about and I just discovered, but who were quite small, and then sort of three bands who I already knew quite a lot about. And then they were like, oh, do you want to do Mike McCready? And I was like, oh, fuck. So I went from sort of those were my views number 5, right? Yeah. And they were like, Mike McCready will call you at midnight. And it's like, oh, shit. Oh, my God. And then he called and he was late. He called me like 45 minutes late as well. And I was like, oh, fucking hell. And then he was so just like, where are you? And I was like, I'm in London. He's like, oh, I love Hyde Park. What's the weather like? And this is like in the summer and stuff. And he was just like really chatty.
Yeah.
And when I was like, oh, I haven't really interviewed hardly anyone before, he was like, yeah, you're doing really good. Yeah, yeah. And he was just so lovely. And you think like he's the first significantly sizable musician that I'd ever spoken to. And he's in fucking Pearl Jam. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And he's Mike McCready. And he was just so fucking lovely. He was so lovely. And I find that quite a lot. Like the people who are absolutely massive stars tend to be, the ones who've sold millions and millions of records, they tend to be the nicest people. They don't tend, there's that you get young bands who are you're just desperate to, like, oh my God, I'm being interviewed, amazing.
Yeah.
And then you get massive stars like Rob Halford is just like so nice.
Yeah.
He's just such a fucking lovely dude. And like the guys I did Status Quo, I did Rick Parfitt and Francis Rossi from Status Quo. And Rick Parfitt is just like was such a nice man.
Yeah.
Like that was on Team Rock. And I don't know really anything about Status Quo at all, but I was just like, what a fucking absolutely lovely bloke.
Yeah.
Duff McKagan, it's just such a nice dude.
I did Chris Cornell. He was
Did you?
lovely. Yeah. I mean, I did his last ever face-to-face interview in the UK.
Really?
Yeah.
Fucking
yeah.
hell.
And at the Royal Albert Hall, and he was, really nice. And I asked him quite difficult questions about like Andy Wood and stuff like that. The who was one of his best friends, a vocalist of Mother Love Bone, who died of a heroin overdose, and he was perfectly happy to answer those questions. And then there's probably slightly smaller name than the ones you've been talking about, but Chino from Deftones is
Chino's
lovely.
Really cool. Yeah, Chino's really cool as well. Jonathan, every time I hear Jonathan Davis, I've never done Jonathan face to face, but every time I hear Jonathan Davis' voice come over the phone, I'm always like, oh my god. And
you know what? I'm so sorry just to cut in, but I was very, very fortunate to do a face to face with Jonathan Davis for an hour. And it was about Korn's entire career. It wasn't just about the new record. And a lot of the time, bands are just seeing it as promo and they just want to talk about the new stuff. And he would talk about anything I wanted. Like I could have asked him anything and he would have been happy to answer it. And he was really nice, Jonathan.
Winston from Parkway Drive, I love talking to as well. Just again, really, like a bit like Jason. Jason from Let Live is from 53. Jason Butler is because I actually I haven't interviewed him for Fever 33, but Jason's really really good. Obviously, Winston's a cut from a sort of similar cloth. I think like, he's really really good. But yeah, I've been fairly. Not many people have been real. I mean, someone actually did ask on Twitter as well. Have you ever been starstruck in an interview? Maynard James Keenan is the. I spoke to Maynard James Keenan for just over 3 minutes, about 3 minutes and 10 seconds. And I forgot how to speak, how to use my legs, I couldn't respond to him. And he just stared at me the entire time. And I think he was deliberately doing that to get at me. And it's the worst. It's probably the worst 3 minutes.
I did Maynard over the phone for Pussifer for 25-30 minutes, and I was shitting it just because you hear so much stuff about like how Maynard is quite difficult, and I found him fine. I was really quite lucky, I felt, and I felt like I probably could have spent more time on the phone if I'd wanted to. I rather foolishly cut it short myself because I was like, oh well, that's our time, and never do that.
No, don't do that, fucking hell.
Never do that.
Off the bloody phone.
I was kind of lucky with Maynard. He seemed absolutely fine to me. I think he just kind of assesses you within a few minutes, and then
I think he saw me and just went, look at this guy just sort of going at me.
I mean,
it's the only time I've ever done that as well. It's literally the only time like I've ever done that. I've been on the phone to people before. I remember like Billy Gould from Faith No More phoned me once, and I was like, Billy Gould. First time Max Cavalera's voice came over the phone. I've spoken to Max a load of times now. I sort of joke like, oh, me and Max are mates, but Max will talk forever.
Do you know what I mean?
He will talk forever.
Actually, you just mentioned Billy Gould. I did a face-to-face with Billy Gould, and he's absolutely lovely. Deaf as a post, but then not surprising, but fucking lovely. Really lovely
really
guy.
Nice.
Billy
Adam
Gould.
D, I always think he's a really good person to talk to. He's really funny. But in terms of bad ones, the worst... there is one worst for me, absolutely the worst, but there are three that really stick out for sort of quite different reasons. Do you want all three?
Yeah, it's going to be harder for me to answer this question. I'll tell you why afterwards.
Why? Let me know.
Oh, right. You want to know now? Well, again, similar to what I was saying before, with the indie, I kind of got free reign to do and interview whoever I wanted to.
Yeah.
So, and I think often, I'm not saying this is necessarily the case with yours, but I think often interviews can be bad because you don't really want to interview those people, and then they can get that sense off of you that you don't really want to interview them, and then they're difficult with you. But generally, I've been incredibly fortunate. So I will give an answer, but I'll probably have to rephrase it from not from worst, but just sort of most difficult to extract anything from.
Okay, well, I can give you some worse. I also want to say, like, for best, Vinnie Paul, fucking
nice.
amazing.
Yeah,
it's just the best dude. I got three that really stand out for me. One is nothing really. It's Band of Skulls or Band of Horses? Band of Skulls. Yeah, Band of Skulls. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the Southampton trio who played Sonosphere in 2014. I was on Team Rock, and they were getting quite big. I think they played Glastonbury, and they were quite high up at Reading. They got added to the Sonosphere bill. They came in, and Matt was my producer. Matt set up an interview, but wasn't there that day. So he said, "I'll come in and just set it all up yourself and interview Band of Skulls." And he said, "I think it'd be quite good because I'd done Royal Blood. I'd interviewed Royal Blood, and it was a bit like, this is sort of going into more of the sort of indie world. I think we were trying to set one up with Wolf Alice, and they just were the most playing at disinterested. Do you know what I mean? I hate about it. Like, oh, yeah, whatever. Like that whole, that really typically indie thing of like, yeah, we don't want to be interviewed, and yeah, we can't be bothered. And it was a radio interview, and I went, you guys are playing Sonosphere with Metallica and Iron Maiden and The Prodigy. That's really cool. But you also recently played Glastonbury, because it's Team Rock. You kind of play up to rock and all that. And I said, you played so who's your favourite out of the Sonosphere lineup? And they were like, oh, like whatever, like who cares, sort of thing. And then I was like, you're also playing Glastonbury, and I was like, look at it, got a load of old crap on the Glastonbury lineup, innit? Look at that, Lily Allen, fucking like went through a load of this shit, but like Bastille. I was like, who's the worst out of all them? Got to be Lily Allen, isn't it? He must have bet you hate Lily Allen. Though. But she's shit, isn't she? Really, she's rubbish, isn't she? And they were just like, I don't actually think like saying bad things about other artists is just something that we don't want to do. And I was like, well, you don't seem to want to say anything. I was like, also you're from Southampton as well. I went, and I'm from Portsmouth. I'm a Portsmouth supporter. You're presumably Southampton supporters. I was like, so we're kind of mortal enemies, aren't we? Do you hate me? And they were like, like just would not be interesting or fun, or do you know what I mean? Would not. I started by sort of trying to talk to them about their music, but when it became apparent that they just didn't want to talk, then I was like, all right, well then I'm just going to be thoroughly obnoxious to you.
Yeah.
The other one is Mark Morton from Lamb of God, and I feel like I can say this now because I've held this in for many years, Renfrey. And then,
well, you haven't held it in off camera, but
no. But last summer, this summer just gone, I spoke to Mark Morton on the phone, and I agreed to it with doing a piece about Lamb of God. And then they said, oh, you'll be talking to Mark Morton. And I went, oh, no. And I've deliberately tried to avoid talking to Mark Morton. And then I spoke to him on the phone after all these years again, and he was really, really, really nice. So I feel like what I'm saying is that I may have caught him on a couple of bad days.
I think this is something that is worth remembering. You can catch people on really bad days, and we all have bad days, and sometimes you have to consider
I had a terrible experience with Mark Morton, and it was a real shame because I love Lamb of God, and I had actually done an interview with him about a week before regarding the sort of how their preview of kind of to what would have then been 2014. And then I got asked to do a piece on the film that they brought out,
As the Palace Has Burned.
Palace Has Burned.
Incredible documentary.
Which is a brilliant documentary. And I was chatting to him about it, and I think I'd done the radio that morning, and then I was still actually working my job at the time. So I'd been to a gig the night before, and then got back about midnight. Had to get up at like 5 to do the radio. Done the radio, gone straight, done a whole day, like finished the radio at 9 o'clock, gone straight to my job, and done a full day's work, finished at 6, and then I was meant to be calling him at 7. So at this point, I was absolutely exhausted, right? I was so knackered. And I was speaking to him about this this documentary, and I sort of said, do you feel, and I was talking about people outside of metal having a real like kind of negative idea of what metal is, and metal fans and what people who like metal do. And obviously with this stuff that Randy had been through, my point to him was like, I was like, suddenly there's going to be a lot of people who know nothing about metal or know nothing about Lamb of God, but just think, oh, that's the guy from that horrible, crazy satanic metal band who, killed one of their fans. Like that might be their sole perception of Lamb of God, their only thing they know about them, right? So I sort of went, do you feel that by having this documentary and releasing it to a far wider demographic of people than that you would usually, that Lamb of God would be exposed to, do you feel like this is a way of you kind of taking that and going, that's everything you need to know about it. We've got it. We've taken it. Here's the whole thing on a plate. Sweep it under the carpet. And he went, sweep it under the carpet. And I didn't mean to say sweep it under the carpet. I meant to take it and own it and go, this is what happened, right? This actually happened. We're not afraid to show it to people. And I went, oh no, not sweep it under the carpet, kind of put a full stop, or kind of draw a line under it as well. I meant to say draw a line under it. And he went, we're not sweeping it under the carpet. We're not sweeping it under the carpet. We brought a fucking film out and got really antsy with him and just didn't want to answer any questions after that. Got really kind of shitty about it. And then tweeted, idiot UK journalist just asked me if we're trying to sweep the whole incident under the carpet. We've just made a film about it. And my mate texted me and went, oh, have you seen this tweet from Mark Morton? And I looked at it and I was like, that's me. And I'd been doing writing for Metal Hammer at that point for about 6 months. So, idiot music journalist. I only did it for not that long. And I'm not saying that's any sort of excuse. I don't think what I said was taken completely out of context. And I had, calling me a music journalist when everything to do with Lamb of God that I'd ever done had been money from my pocket.
Yeah.
I'd bought Sacrament. I'd bought the fucking concert tickets. I'd bought the Philadelphia DVD. I'd bought the hoodie that I've got. Do you know what I mean? Like that. I was a fan of that band. And
I mean, he didn't know. He didn't.
No,
know
of course he didn't know that. But I was like, motherfucker, like how fucking. And I was like, I cannot believe it was that thing of when people go like, oh, the media, they twist your words. It's like, you're twisting my words, you bastard. So I had a real fucking chip on my shoulder about that. But then I actually got asked to interview him again a few months later, and he heard it was me on the phone, and he was like, oh, hey, how's it going? And I said, oh, hi, it's me, Mark. And he was like really kind of grumpy with me. So for a long time I was like, man, I'm just going to keep the fuck away from Mark Morton until it happened this summer. And he was actually really nice. So I'm hoping that doesn't come across too shitty a thing to say.
I mean, you could have done it in half the time, but sure.
Well, that's why I'm going to save that. Matt Tuck's the worst one. I've got a story about Matt Tuck. Fucking hell, that guy. God, what a dickhead. But anyway, I don't have time to do it. It's longer. It's way longer than the one I've just told.
People are going to be annoyed if you don't do it.
Well, they're going to have to be annoyed then,
I can
aren't they?
cut the Mark Morton one, and then you can do the Matt Tuck one. I have to stay awake somehow. Sorry, it's a bit harsh. I'm very, very tired suddenly. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, don't worry about it then.
Okay, people are going to want to know that.
Yeah, I probably can't really tell you the Matt Tuck one anyway because it's pretty alright.
It's bad.
There's no sort of nice comeback for the
Why don't we record it after this, and then we can charge £1,000?
Yeah, we can do that.
Patreon.
We can do that. We could definitely do that. I'd happily charge everyone £1,000 just for some shitty little story about fucking the worst artist in Britain.
As I said, I mean, I don't really have any bad ones. I've been pretty fortunate overall, but I have had quite a few where getting answers out of them is just blood from a stone kind of thing. And I don't really want to say this because I fucking love them, and I would like to stress that they were both really lovely. They weren't nasty or anything like that. But Dustin and Tepe from Thrice, I really struggled to get interesting stuff out of them. Might have been down to my questions. I don't think my questions were the best in the world, if I'm totally honest. But it felt really, really difficult to the point where I went up to the PR afterwards. I was like, I don't think that went well at all. Did they say anything? And apparently they didn't. I think it was probably just, I think they're probably just nice, shy dudes and didn't feel like they had all.
There's a lot of people like that in bands, isn't there?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, there are loads of people like that. And I there's a ton of bands that I could name, like most people in post-rock bands, to be honest, because there isn't a front person in post-rock bands. It's I did sort of when I tried to get loads of post-rock onto the independent, I did start to realise quite early on why people don't interview post-rock bands, and it's because for the most part, most members of post-rock bands are really lovely but quite boring, nerdy guys, really. But yes, I think I adore them and I think they're brilliant, and I would interview them again, but I think Dustin and Tepe were very difficult to actually get anything out of. Yeah. I managed to put an article together somehow, but it required a lot of work from me. I just made a bunch of stuff up.
Oh, good.
No, I didn't. I didn't do that.
So, I mean, Thrice said they were going to be touring with Pink Floyd and told the darkness to fuck off.
Dustin came riding a unicorn, and yeah.
Elliot Holt, Clawfinger, Collapsed Lung, Catch, Shag, Marry, Kill. This is an easy one for me. Easy one for me. Absolutely marry Collapsed Lung. Absolutely marry Collapsed Lung.
Okay.
Big time. I'd happily spend the rest of my days in domestic bliss with the members of Collapsed Lung, who are, a funny band with a couple of like funny little hilarious songs that I'm into. I'd probably shag.
I'd Catch.
Well, you're going to get something from you. You might regret shagging Catch when you're fucking getting a shot down the local GP. I would shag Clawfinger and I would kill Catch. I think the thing about killing Catch is you're not going to make any dent. You might as well let them live because no one knows who they are anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's going to make absolutely no dent whether they live or die. Whereas Clawfinger, it is a bit like, oh God, really? Do you have to be a thing?
But people know who they are. Was it Taiwan or where did they get massive?
Yeah. Somewhere like that.
Somewhere like that.
Yeah, I can't remember. In Eastern Asia, yeah.
Good. Yeah. The reason I say shag for Catch is because he's got such a lovely effeminate voice. And if I squint,
he's also got he's definitely got pubic lice.
Oh, how you can tell that from that video and that video?
But not from that video, from how they got together, from that video, from that song, from the just general demeanour. You look at it and you go, that is a man who pisses fire. He is like, you do not want to shag him, mate.
Well, I'd make sure I had plenty of protection.
Oh yeah, always. I mean, you know, like those ones from you need those condoms from the Naked Gun to not catch any.
A life-size costume. The condoms.
I would shag Clawfinger. I'd be like, shag the Swedish. Bit of Swedish, lovely Swedish.
I think I'd kill Collapsed Lung and I'd marry Clawfinger. Just to have a different answer to you. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for me to choose between those two. So I just have to have a different answer to you. I don't really want to marry Clawfinger though. No, fuck it. I'm gonna marry Collapsed Lung and I'll kill Clawfinger. Okay, fair enough. We've had a few movie questions as well, Renfrey. Do you want to answer any movie questions? Yeah, totally. You and Taylor, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Discuss happily. Happily, we'll discuss Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I haven't seen it. Can you do it spoiler free? Because I do really want to see it. No, I can't. Because the ending of it is so just disgustingly offensive. Can you not do it then? Okay, we can't. Quentin Tarantino is made some really great films. Absolutely, really, really great films. He's also made some very I nearly use the word problematic, and I don't mean it in the sense of problem, but I mean films that are a bit broken, to say the least. Yes. So Tarantino, growing up, BBC Two showed Pulp Fiction when I was like 12 years old or something like that, and I remember taping it on a VHS and like in the middle of the night and making sure my parents didn't see me doing it and all that kind of thing, and it had such a profound effect on me, and I became a massive Tarantino fan and loved him all the way up to, I think Kill Bill Volume 2 was probably the beginning of the I don't rate Kill Bill Volume 2. No. The first one is phenomenal, but Volume 2, the main issue with Tarantino these days is he needs an editor over him who will actually fucking say, Quentin, get rid of that you don't need that, you don't need that, you don't need that. Like watching Django Unchained is a brilliant 2-hour movie stretched out to 2 hours and 50 minutes, I believe it is, and there's just 50 minutes of crap which doesn't need to be there, and it's so frustrating because there's so much excellent stuff in every Tarantino film has great stuff in it, but discuss Once Upon a Time in America. No, well, but we can't. I haven't seen it yet. How come you haven't seen it? Because I've been busy. Right, come sure. I mean, look, I've been busy. We're not going to be very busy over January. Why don't we come back to that question? And I promise I will watch it over the Christmas break because I really want to see it. Can I just say,
to answer the thing about before you fucking jump down my neck, what I was saying is Quentin Tarantino has made some films that are great, some films that are broken but always have bits in it. Like Inglourious Bastards, for example, is a bit of a fucking slog to say the least. But Christoph Waltz and the scene with Michael Fassbender in the bar, it's enough. There's enough in it for me to go, okay, well, that's really good.
I'm slightly kinder to Inglourious Basterds than you. It's the last Tarantino film that I enjoyed the whole way through.
Okay. I think overall, I just about prefer Django to it, although I think Django, I want to chop the last half an hour of Django off completely and just get rid of it.
His cameo in that is
horrendous.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in America, I was really quite excited about seeing, as I usually am for, you've got that thing where you just go, oh, Tarantino film.
It's an event,
and there's not enough interest in dialogue, which is one of the sort of key factors of a Quentin Tarantino film. It's a sort of calling card of his, obviously, isn't it? I didn't think the there was none of the characters felt rounded or interesting to me, and I actually found the ending incredibly distasteful.
Coming from Stephen Hill as well.
Yeah,
wow.
I didn't like the ending. I walked out of it and I thought that is massively unnecessary, and it smacked of someone who was just going, look how great Hollywood was until people can.
Okay, let's talk about that in January.
Yeah, okay.
I promise I'll see it over the Christmas break.
I didn't like it at all. It's the first time I watched a Tarantino film and I was like, I don't think this has any redeeming qualities about it at all.
What's the best Tarantino film?
Pulp Fiction.
Yes, but just to be contrary, I'm going to say Jackie Brown because I think it is as good.
Let's carry on with this. Adam Valley says, we occasionally hear you discuss movies you love, even if we do have to suffer Stephen's Arnie impression. What?
That is no. That's
terrible,
isn't it? Yeah.
But what are your top three movies?
Ever?
Ever.
Fuck me.
It's tough, that, isn't it? Just ping that out. Back to the Future 1 and 2 combined is my favourite movie.
You're not having that as one.
Yes, I am, actually, because it essentially counts as one. It is really one. 3 is as well.
You can't have a film. You can't have two films.
I can't split them.
One was done in 1985 and one was done in 1999. You can't do it. No.
What do you mean? That's got nothing to do with it. It's a follow-on to the story. So if I
all right, I'm going to have Fast and the Furious 1 to 7.
Well, that's you really ran with that.
I'm not going to have that because I don't like it.
Would you have Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, parts 1 and 2?
No. I would. I mean, if I were doing
Kill Bill 1 and 2, if I said my favourite film ever was Kill Bill, but only part 1, you'd go, well, that's only half the story, surely.
Yeah, but Kill Bill was filmed as one film and then had to be chopped in two.
Yeah, but okay, but Back to the Future is literally set at the same time as the first one.
You can have Back to the Future 1, lovely. Yeah.
Can I have Back to the Future 2?
No, well, you can if you want it as another choice.
Well, that makes it very difficult. Okay, well, all right, then I'll pick Back to the Future, which I've never had to make this distinction before. And I think it's an appalling thing to make someone do. I think the thing about Back to the Future is that the reason why I think it's the best film ever is because it's actually a really, really quite a difficult conceptual idea.
Yeah.
That is executed perfectly.
Yeah.
Nearly flawlessly, not completely flawlessly. I think in the first one they get as close to flawlessness in terms of time travel and these weird lines as any movie ever has, because there's always problems with time travel films, as discussed by Richard Herring again, in his opinion, basically. But he's right. But Back to the Future does it so brilliantly and so perfectly, but it also makes it seem really, really simple,
easy to understand. Yeah,
I mean, another film that I love, Memento, is an amazing film.
Yeah,
right, and that goes ping, ping, ping. That's very, very. You couldn't put a kid in front of Memento and go, "Oh, do you know what's going on?" They'd go, "No, no," but they all know what's going on in Back to the Future. Yeah. It is a really very difficult conceptual idea executed within this lovely, beautiful, family, heartwarming. Romp. It's fucking perfect.
I would
the
go
characters are perfect.
I would go as
performance is
far as to say it's
incredible.
perfect. The
It's
first
so
one
great.
is perfect. Yeah, and 2 is amazing.
The 2 is fucking amazing as well.
Yeah.
3, I mean, the only reason people mug off 3, if 3 came out on its own, just as a film, you'd go, oh, do you remember that film? That was great, wasn't it? That's a great 80s classic.
It's better than Wild Wild West. Technically came out in 90. But fine.
It did, yeah. And, but, you know, you'd be like, oh, what a great film that was. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
But because the first 2 are just peerless, everyone goes, third one's rubbish. It's
Third
not
one's
rubbish.
great. No,
it's
it's
not
great.
rubbish. It's just not as good.
I'd say it's a 5, a 5, and a 4.
Well, I'm going to do that at 10. I'd say it's a 10, a 10, and a 9. 10, a 10, and an 8.5. I don't know what Anyway, that's number 1.
Whew, this is taking a while.
What's
Yep,
what's your favourite?
Oh, I have to put them in order, do I?
Well, yeah, if I can't have Back to the Future 2, then yes, you do.
Fuck's sake. One of the films. Oh God, Goodfellas.
Yeah, it's good, that.
Just again, sort of speaking about Pulp Fiction earlier, just the impact it had on me watching it when I was younger. Just like, oh my God. And that scene where he's rushing around and the narration in films is often considered like a weak thing to do, but I actually fucking love the narration part of Goodfellas, and he's rushing around trying to like get all the drugs, blah 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 blah. There's that amazing one. It's a film that like made me look into like cinematography a bit more, because there's that one shot where like it isn't cut where they're going into the club.
Oh,
and all that kind of thing. It made me adore gangster movies. And it kind of just felt like I think Godfather Part 1 and 2 are amazing as well, but Goodfellas kind of just feels like my generation's Godfather, you know? I just fucking adore it.
Yeah, it's very, very good indeed. Very good. I think my sort of 2 and 3, I think The Big Lebowski might be one.
Oh, fantastic!
I fucking love The Big Lebowski.
My favourite Coen Brothers film.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I love films with I love an ensemble cast. I love a big ensemble cast of really weird, wild characters, and there's so many times in The Big Lebowski where somebody comes in, you just think, this can't get any more kind of madcap.
Yeah.
And it does. And
the Coens are good at that generally, I think.
Oh yeah, they're good at that generally, but I
it's
think
very good
particularly in The Big Lebowski,
yeah.
it's really funny. It's such an odd story, you know, like it's just basically someone does a piss on his rug,
and it's just his quest to get his rug back, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then it goes,
like, where's this guy come from?
Yeah.
Who is he? Like,
It's
why
like a
are they doing
massive
that?
stoner,
And the way it all of it's really, really good, and it's got that kind of all those nods back to kind of, again, classic sort of Hollywood noir stuff is really great. And I've never been into those sort of, you know, Clark Gable and Cary Grant and Humphrey Bogart, sort of those.
Yeah,
those
Bogart's more noir.
I
don't know about Clark Gable. Yeah,
I don't know why I said Clark Gable, actually.
No,
That's my mum's love.
yeah.
My mum loves Clark Gable, but he's more of a sort of jaunty, fun.
Yeah, he's I mean, I'm not saying he's never done a film noir film, but he's not
I
known
meant
for it.
Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said Clark
Bogart.
Gable. Yes. Anyway, so yeah, I would say, I think that would be up there. Big Lebowski.
I'm gonna go with Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Oh, that's good.
Because it's the perfect sequel, just in terms of like taking a concept and throwing it into something just. Oh, it's the same idea, but it's just thrown into a totally different world, and it's completely bigger and better. And so many sequels just do like everything bigger, better, and think that it will be better. This is one of the few cases where it actually is better. And the Terminator is fucking great.
Yeah, I love the Terminator.
It's brilliant, but
So good.
Terminator 2 is astonishing, isn't it? And I just love that film so much. It's all practical. Obviously there's the CGI stuff has aged really well, because they didn't try to over exert what they were doing, because it's so much easier to make like a guy look liquid metally kind of thing. It still actually looks quite good.
Yeah, I think
because
it does.
it doesn't have ideas above its station.
Yeah.
I just love it. Yeah, I just adore that film. It's got Guns N' Roses in it. Lovely stuff.
It is good. It is really good. There's a few others that I could give a shout. I think maybe
Don't do shout-outs.
maybe Die Hard, but no, actually, I'm going to say, because I want to pick something sort of serious. Again, Die Hard feels like a bit of that would be a fun top three, wouldn't it? Die Hard, Big Lebowski, and Back to the Future. So I'm going to say The Shining.
Oh, yes, please.
The Shining is one of the only films that continues to unsettle me, even as a nearly 40-year-old man. Like, I think it is really, like, I went to see Doctor Sleep a couple of weeks ago.
Said it was surprisingly good.
It was surprisingly
the last
good,
half hour.
Yeah. And then the last half an hour, it just reminds you of how great they throw in so much from The Shining that you kind of go, oh yeah, because it could have nearly could have been a completely standalone film. Halfway through, it was doing that Ghostbusters trick of going, oh, this could just be a film not about ghosts. It could be a film about some guys setting up a business, and that would probably be enough to make it a really, really good film. The first sort of 2/3 of Doctor Sleep, I was like, I'd kind of forgotten that he was Danny Torrance. I'd kind of forgotten that he'd come from that place, and and which in a good way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to kind of be bashed over the head with, and then they bashed you over the head with like too much stuff from The Shining. But it was good. But I think The Shining is, there's something about that film, just the way it looks, the whole aura of it.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson's performance in it is
Brilliant.
incredible.
Yeah.
If you probably, if you know anything about the making of it, you know what Stanley Kubrick did to Shelley Duvall. Which you wouldn't fly
like
now. But what has been left on the screen, I'm not saying that this is justification. Well, I kind of am, actually. Fuck it, I am.
And apparently I'm the woman hater.
Yeah, but no, not the woman hate. I think there's just the treat, like if to get people, like unfortunately, sometimes you do have to be. This happened to me at drama school. I had to sleep in a fucking field one day when I was at drama school to get into the mindset of the ranters during the English Civil War, and they were like, go and sleep in a field and it was fucking snowing out. It was horrible.
I got assaulted by a homeless man and he stole my shoes.
When?
So we did a lot of what's it called, method stuff. And I was playing a beggar, so I was told to go out onto the streets of London and try begging, and I did a terrible job of it because I was like dressed up quite nicely in quite nice clothes, and I sat outside the Dominion Theatre where We Will Rock You was playing at the time, and I tried to make friends with this homeless guy and sort of pretend that I was homeless as well, and he figured me out pretty quickly, smashed an empty bottle of Smirnoff vodka over my head, and stole my shoes.
So what you're saying is Shelley Duvall had it easy. But to go back to my original quite serious point, I do think sometimes if you're a director, I mean, there's health and safety and stuff now, but you can't argue with it. I mean, surely she looks back on that and goes, that is an amazing film.
Yeah, well, the shit you do to me to get me pumped for this podcast is pretty fucking...
Yeah, I just get rid of it. You have to air drum to Back Foot by Dinosaur Pileup 12 times and get it right. Get that cymbal crash right every time.
Tears.
Yeah. So that would be mine, The Shining. I talked about The Shining much then, but it is amazing.
I want to go on a music motif, so I'm going to say Amadeus.
Do you know what? I've never seen that.
Oh, mate.
I think I should.
Well, look, my uncle showed me this film when I was about 10 years old and was like, I'm going to put on a 3-hour biopic about Mozart. And I was a polite young man, boy, and so I didn't complain. But the idea of showing me a 3-hour epic on Mozart at 10 years old was not something that I thought I'd be interested in at all. And I was absolutely riveted, because it's basically like, it is about Mozart, but it's actually more about Salieri and his kind of hatred of Mozart and the fact that it's more about kind of jealousy, really. And 3 hours flew by. And then I didn't watch it for years and years and years. And then when I got a DVD player, I bought the director's cut and watched it again. And not only was it as good as I remembered it, I think it was actually better than I remembered it. And it is just an absolute masterpiece, and so much funnier, so much less dry than you would imagine a 3-hour film about Mozart to be. I don't imagine it's that historically accurate, to be honest. But it is an incredible piece of work. It's fucking brilliant. There we go.
Good. Tom James, what is your favourite album artwork? That's a good question, isn't it? Very good question. I can't actually think of any that I absolutely would consider to be my favourite. I like Roots by Sepultura, and I mentioned it earlier at the very, very start of the podcast. I love the Roots artwork.
Can I go for the Bros Christmas box?
You can go for the Bros Christmas box set. Yes, of course.
No, that's a shit answer. Fucking hell. Fuck it, I don't mention them enough. I guess it's because that I grew up with this album and I just adore seeing the cover, and maybe it's the sort of memories that it brings back to me. But I fucking love the Use Your Illusion artwork.
Yeah,
it's so weird and strange, and I don't really understand what's going on in it. And I really like the Use Your Illusion artwork. Axl ended up paying something like, this isn't the figure, but something like $36,000 for it, and they found out later that they could have just got it for free. 1991.
Bloody hell. I'd shout out any kind of John Baisley.
Yeah, I mean, I immediately
Baroness,
thought of John Baisley.
Attack.
Yeah.
I think the Jane Doe artwork has become iconic.
Yep.
I
I was thinking Lateralis, actually. I mean, once you take the cover off, and flip it open and stuff, that's amazing.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of good ones, to be honest, that we're definitely not. Mother Blood by Grave Pleasures as a recent one. That weird, and that felt like a real kind of throwback to that kind of oil painted, sort of odd looking Roxy Music style album covers and stuff. It's good. I like that. Ewan Taylor asks, we didn't answer his question because he asked quite a few. He asked about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. My question is, System of a Down get a lot of abuse without putting out new music, but there are other bands who do this. Emperor and Curb Dog are two examples, but they don't get any abuse for it. Why do you think it is? Is it about openness? If System of a Down categorically said we aren't going to release any more new music, you can come and see us live or not, would that make it okay? No. Not for me.
Well, isn't it about size of the band as well? Because Curb Dog aren't going to be. I'm sorry to say, Steve, Curb Dog aren't going to be headlining Download anytime soon.
No, that is the fucking tragedy. No, and actually, Curb Dog did.
Neither are Emperor.
Curb Dog did actually release a new single.
Did they?
A couple of years ago, yeah.
I missed that.
Which is a really, really fucking great song as well. I forgot what it's called off the top of my head. I've not listened to it for a while, but I was like, it came back really good. Good.
Was that when they sort of came back for those shows? There was one
the
forum
Congregation
and stuff. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Album and stuff like it. Good song. So, and they turn up and then they go and they turn up and they go, and they've got, it's a lot of it is about size. Like, not Curb Dog aren't asking you to pay fucking £100 to go and see them. So there's that. I think Emperor is, an interesting band to bring up, but then Ishan is doing, if White Zombie got back together for some shows, no one would go, well, we need a new White Zombie album. They just go, well, Rob Zombie's going to release an album soon. Yeah. So Ishan's releasing new music.
Although I think that's different because I think Rob Zombie's stuff is far closer to White Zombie stuff. Ishan's gone off in all sorts of
Ishan and... Yeah, okay, but if you look at... if you look at what Rob Zombie and White Zombie have done throughout their entire career, and you look at where Emperor started and then where Emperor finished, like, that is quite a big gap as well. So it feels like a fairly natural progression of what Ishan's doing. Yes. So Ishan's continuing to do that. I mean, we've had some Serge Tankian solo material.
Elect the Dead was fucking great.
We've had a couple of Scars on Broadway albums.
I still love the debut.
Are any of them as good as System of a Down? I would say not even
no,
close.
But personally, those two that I've mentioned, I think are not far off either.
I also think most people aren't as aware of Serge's solo material or Scars on Broadway as they are System of a Down, as opposed to people who like Emperor probably listen to Ishan.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with it.
I saw Scars on Broadway at the Underworld.
Did you? Wow, that was their first UK show.
Their first ever UK show. Yeah. That was incredible.
I think third and final, and for me the most important thing about this is that System of a Down are a band, and I think I've said this a whole bunch of times, I absolutely stand by it, are a band who are supposed to mean something, who are supposed to have been different to the usual, the kind of standard rock cliche and trope. Now, when you get Kiss and Motley Crue and those kind of bands reforming for money, right? That's what you expect of those bands. You know, we didn't kind of go down hard on Motley Crue when they reformed because we were like, they're Motley Crue, they're hacks.
Yeah, that's what they'll do.
That's what they're going to do. System of a Down at the drive-in refused Rage Against the Machine. They set themselves up as bands with
More
a
integrity.
moral compass and more integrity and a different, you know, who were there to go, you know, who were deliberately going out of their way to go, the music industry should not be like this. You know, the world should not be like this. We are, you know, moral arbiters of and we are to be held to higher standards than those bands. We are better than those bands. We are better people than those bands. We're better artists than those bands. They said that themselves. They came out and said that. They acted in that way. They started and they behaved that way.
They specifically say
they
those
set
things?
themselves. Yeah, of course they did.
Yep.
They're the four that have reformed. That for me, all of them have slightly compromised what they were. I mean, at the drive-in, massively refused. Not. I don't want to say massively, but more than I would like. Certainly a lot more than I would like. Rage Against the Machine are getting to the point now where I'm like, you know, shit will get off the pot. And, you know, just, I would rather not have Rage Against the Machine than think of them as some sort of, you know, Vegas tribute karaoke thing. And that is what System of a Down are now. They turn up and they play the hits, and they can't even be bothered to look like they want to play the hits at most of that. I just want to feel like, you know, I would like to think System of a Down are better than that. I would like to think they look at videos of their download performances and go, we're ashamed of that. They should be ashamed of it.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah. Fine.
You got anything to add to that?
Not
Renfrew?
really. No. Well, okay. The only thing I would say is I think System and Rage get more of that kind of thing because they are the size of kind of big festival headline down. I mean headliners. I mean when we that conversation usually comes up when they are booked to do download 9 times out of 10, isn't it? Yeah. And the conversation revolves around to that because it's like, okay, there's this big headliner playing the biggest rock metal festival in the UK, and they haven't released new material for 13, 14 years, something like that. So that's when that conversation usually comes up.
Yeah, that's true. But I think, you know, it's fair. It's surely, you know, I don't feel like I'm holding them to these impossible standards. Joseph, who's got a really weird at Twitter, said, how do you handle being in the music media in regards to constantly keeping up with new music, trends, news, developments, etc.? Is it overwhelming, or do you somehow manage to take it in your stride? And actually the next person along, who's called Jacob Harmon, says, does being asked to listen to music as a profession take the fun out of listening to music?
Sometimes. I think it depends how.
It does when I know as soon as we finish this, I've got to listen to that 5 Finger Death Punch album.
It does. It's a bit of a weird one. You have to kind of keep reminding yourself that like you're in a very lucky position, and what we do is very envious to thousands and thousands of people around the world. So you have to kind of remind yourself of that. But there is definitely a weird double-edged sword to it where. Especially when it gets really busy. I found the last few months, for example, and it's always the case, September to November, where you feel like you don't have any time whatsoever to listen to what you actually want to listen to because you're so busy listening to stuff to review or anything like that. It has got worse since we've been doing Riot Act, and since I've been reviewing more stuff. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you listen to it weirdly. You listen to albums in a slightly different way to how you would if you were just someone buying it. Because when you listen to a record, you go, right, well, I need to come up with stuff to say about this. And sometimes you just enjoy records and that they're just great, and there's no particular rhyme or reason as to why you find them fantastic. Like in my top 20 recently, I struggled to say loads and loads and loads and loads of stuff about the Microwave record or the Brutus record, for example. I did my best, but I didn't. You know, those entries were far shorter than other ones because at the end of the day, I just love those records because I just think they're great and they've stuck with me, and I think they're awesome. But you know, sometimes there isn't an awful lot to say about a record apart from I think it's fantastic. I think Dinosaur Pile Up was kind of one for you. We sort of both said it with Menzingers as well. I mean, the new Menzingers album, it is fucking brilliant, but it is just another great Menzingers record.
Yeah. It's something very personal about music like that, I feel like. I mean, someone said to me on Twitter, they were like, oh, because I was sort of bemoaning how metal hadn't really progressed, and I was like, and they went, well, the Menzingers haven't done anything new, have they? And I was like, no, but that's different, isn't it? Because I feel like the Menzingers really, they're not really about musical progression. It's you know, it's about the kind of their own personality and their whole, and I'm not looking great songwriters as well.
I'm not looking to the Menzingers to innovate.
No, I just want them to write great songs that
resonate with
tell me. It's like getting a postcard from a close friend who you haven't seen for years, who's moved abroad or something, and you go, oh, well, I wonder what they've been doing, and then you find out what they've been doing.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the joy of the Menzingers, and they write those songs. They're so kind of, they paint such great pictures with the songs they write. And this is another thing. Metal's not a songwriting genre, really, is it? Like, the most important thing about metal is not always, it was a great, like there is great songwriters in metal, don't get me wrong, but that's not the integral thing about, for me, metal should always be about, being kind of vibrant and fast and, rhythmically exciting. And I don't think and angry and kind of furious and the sort of thing makes you want to crush a can. And that's not normally what you think of when you think of good songwriting. Do you know what I mean? So
no. I mean, innovation and good songwriting are not necessarily always hand in hand.
Yeah,
sometimes they are, but they're not always. And there are plenty of genres. I mean, I was saying earlier that I've been listening to a lot of singer-songwriter, folky kind of stuff this year, and there's not been any major innovations in folk and singer-songwriter stuff, really, in the last 10, 15 years. You could argue Bon Iver maybe, but even then, there's not been an awful lot, but it doesn't really matter. Because I suppose metal's a relatively young genre in the grand scheme of things. It's 50 years old, but so there still feels like a need to innovate in it, although that people are starting to feel like that everything
doesn't,
that it doesn't,
and that's why you look at sort of hip hop and electronic music, which is even younger, and they still do have places where they can go, and I'm sure these things will eventually plateau out a little bit.
Well, this is I think a lot of the time when people talk about the death knell of rock music or metal music or whatever, they're not considering the fact that those genres are younger, and yes, they probably are still innovating. I know less about that than you. I mean, they are. I think they are. I think the Clipping record is quite a good example of that. And they are doing innovative stuff still, and maybe metal is beginning to peter out with that, bar the odd exception here and there. I don't know, a Zealanada or a Carbon maybe or whatever, but that's how it goes. That doesn't necessarily mean that the genre is dead, because folk music ain't dead, is it? So.
But I mean, for me, in terms of is it still enjoyable to listen to music, I mean, I never stop enjoying listening to music. I will always make a point of listening to an album that I am already familiar with, that I love at some point, at some point during the day. Every day. I need to do that. I think I mean, this is a conversation you and I had where you were not freaking out, but you were like going, there's so much stuff that I've missed, and I've realised how much I've missed, and we've missed so much stuff. And I was like, well, we're two people. We're not a magazine. We're two people. We're going to miss. No, I haven't listened to the Moontooth album. I'm really sorry. I haven't listened to the Moontooth album. I'm really.
We keep getting somewhere. I can't. I'm sorry. Oh, is it Blaney? James Blaney?
I'm really sorry. I haven't.
We're sorry, guys, but we will. We'll try and check it out.
A lot of it depends on when you see it. Like for me, when these recommended, and I tried to do this. I mean, someone recommended Clipping. And I went, I'll listen to that. And it's just because I was walking along, not doing anything. I was coming out of IKEA, and I saw on my phone someone go, "You should listen to Clipping." And I went, "All right, I will." And if I see it, then I'll listen to it. But if I'm at work and I see it, and I go, "Oh, you want me to listen to some, or can you listen to the Blood Incantation album?" And I'm at work.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen right then and there, and then you forget about it. So, I was a bit like, listen, just accept that we're not going to get everything.
No.
I think this is the thing: is that the pressure from before, from various outlets that you and I, maybe me more so than you, had done, that sort of forced us to try and say to people, "Hey, we are an oracle. We've heard everything. We know everything about music." And I think actually, I don't. I can't. How can I? I don't know everything about music. This show is very, very broad, and I think I am always going to be very honest about when I haven't heard something or when I'm not a massive fan of something. Like, people would probably expect me to be a massive fan of Sunday Real Estate. Like, we talked about Sunday Real Estate. And I turned around and went, I didn't hear Sunday Real Estate till I was 20, like really properly. I didn't hear their entire back catalogue until I was about 26. Like, I didn't really know anything about them. I didn't, there's a lot of bands that people would probably expect both of us to be really massive fans of, and it's easy to kind of blag it now to just go, "Oh, I've heard that song and I've heard that song," and and actually you haven't. I heard Sugar before I heard Husker Du, and I am, to me they're the first Bob Mould thing that I heard. I'm not, I do like Husker, like especially now I really like Husker Du, but I never grew up listening to Husker Du. I didn't. And
I didn't either.
And I think, you just got to accept that you do not, you will not, and you cannot know everything about every different type of music. And I think it makes it a lot easier to, I get a bit stressed out and I think, oh God, I've not heard anything new that I really like and that's really sort of grabbed onto me, that because I want to get new stuff and stuff that's just coming out and bring it onto the show and go, there you go, like Her Name Is Calla, where we can go, fucking you need to listen to this band, you have to. Like, that's a great thing. But you can't fake it. You can't, I think maybe one of the reasons why the show isn't maybe as big as we want it to be is just because this type of music isn't as big as it, you have to go by what is going on in the scene at the moment. And you have to be honest about where you see the kind of strengths and weaknesses of what is happening in the scene. And I think as a general overview of what's going on in alternative music, I think we do a pretty fucking good job for the most part. Yeah. But we are not ever going to get every single record. We're not. And I think once you come to terms with that, once you accept that, that that you're not this fucking like oracle of fountain of knowledge of knowing every single album that's ever been released, then the better. Because no one is, no matter how much they tell you they are not. Every fucking music journalist out there who tells you that they have heard every record and they know everything, they, trust me, they haven't. They absolutely haven't.
I think we're pretty honest about that. I mean,
yeah, I do.
There's more music being released now than there ever has been because it's easier to. People can record in their bedrooms now and record like really good sounding records, and the tools in order to do it are so much more accessible than they ever used to be. And that's a wonderful thing. That's an incredible thing. But as a result, there is more music than there ever has been. Yeah. And getting it to it all is a constant source of difficulty for me. But yeah.
Do you want a couple more? This is a good one on Tony Pepperoni. Opinions on Oceansize. You're new around here, aren't you? Bloody hell.
Yeah, come on. Like,
that's Renfrey's favourite band in the world.
They're my favourite. Well, they've said they're my favourite British band of all time. I fucking adore Oceansize. So yeah. And I gave you FLRS, which is their debut album in Trade-Off, and you liked it very, very much.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. And I still haven't probably, again, see, this is another thing. I still haven't listened to any other Oceansize albums.
I'll give you one in the new year.
Yeah, well, I will do, but eventually you try and get around to stuff. I'd like to answer this one if you don't mind, Renfrey. Michael Guy Perry, Steve, any desire to go back to stand-up? I finally gave it a go at the weekend after thinking about it for years on and off, and I loved it. Without blowing too much smoke up your ass, there's never enough smoke up my ass. You are definitely an inspiration. Oh, God. Well, I'm sorry about that because it is a world of hell that you're about to enter into. I actually went, the only reason I brought this up, no, I have absolutely no desire to do stand-up ever again. It's really fucking hard, and Maybe I just wasn't that good at it. But also,
You're very shouty, from what I recall.
yeah, really quite shouty. Yeah, but hey, that was the thing back in the noughties, wasn't it? And I don't have time. And I actually went to my mate who I did a couple of Edinburgh shows with a few years back. I went to his book launch the other day, and I bumped into a load of people I used to stand up with, and a lot of them are still doing it, and you just lose enthusiasm for it. It's a very, very, very difficult industry to break into. When I started, there was no, thinking about it now, there was no stand up on TV, there was no Mock the Week, there was no, do you know, stand up comedy just wasn't really on TV, and now it's fucking everywhere. And I think people have looked at it and gone, you can get famous quickly by doing that, and it's very, very, very difficult. So
it's a very lonely profession.
Yeah,
you're on the
hard,
road on your own quite a lot.
really
Edinburgh, which is kind of sort of seen as the something which you're very much pressured to do every year. Even I don't think it's essential, but you're very much pressured. You will lose tens of thousands of pounds every year of doing a show, most likely, unless you're incredibly lucky.
Right, I think I'm going to make this the last one. Chris Mellor. A shit ton of bands have called it a day over the last couple of years. Arcane Roots, Bad Signs, Statues, Feed the Rhino, Zokes, In Dynamics, Ghouls, to name a few. Which band split were you most gutted about? I'm going to take this as the decade, from this decade, Renfrey, most gutted about the split of. I think the obvious one would be Let Live. Would be pretty obvious. I mean, I was pretty fucked off that Let Live split up off the back of a great record. We didn't even get any headline shows off the back of that record. And
No, that was such a shame.
that was a real shitter. They played at Brixton Academy with
Pierce the Veil.
Pierce the Veil and Creeper, and they were incredible.
Yeah, which I stupidly didn't go to because I was like, I'd rather wait till they come back and headline.
Yeah, they were amazing.
Idiot.
They were amazing. So Let Live is an obvious, I would say, the one, really.
Let Live is a very good shout. Two sprang to mind. We've just mentioned them. Oceansize, I think, split up in 2010, so I think I can just about have it.
Yep.
But Oceansize splitting up, I remember being in floods of tears. I was really, really upset about that. That sucked ass because I think they are one of the most unique, interesting bands in the world. And I'm also going to shout out Arcane Roots. I was fucking gutted because I mean I know those guys and I think they had really just started to garner attention and people were beginning. I felt like for years and years and years people didn't really take Arcane Roots seriously, and I never really understood why. But I think with Melancholy Hymns, it felt like that people were going, "Oh my god, this band do have something," you know. That came out and then they split up. I mean, Colour, I suppose you could say as well.
Well, I was going to say that would be one, having to sort of just find this band's album, it'd be like so amazing, and then they just split up, and you're like, what?
Yeah, I was always gutted about.
That was a real shitter. That
I was always gutted about the JCQ.
Yeah, well, from that time, I mean, for me, the one from that time is Heights.
Yeah,
Dead Ends by Heights is such a fucking rip-roaring, brilliant debut record, and then obviously Tom left, Monty was on bass and then took over as a front man. They released not as good a follow-up, and it just all petered out. But there was a little period where Heights were this amazing British Willhaven with sort of New York hardcore energy to them. They were young, and Dean, their guitarist, obviously plays guitar in the Rattlesnakes, Frank Hart and the Rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
So he's done pretty well for himself, and which is great to see. But yeah, I was like, oh man, not Heights. But that was. Sometimes bands just like Let Live split up, and you're like, what are you doing? You look at Her Name Is Colour, and you go, oh, they've split up, and they've just released this record, and you're like, what? Whereas with Heights, it was like this slow. You're getting worse and like people are becoming less interested, and. Yeah, it was sad to see that. It was a shame, real shame that.
Along the same lines, I'm going to throw in Heck.
Yeah.
Really sad to see Heck split up.
That was a bummer, that, wasn't it?
I'm going to chuck a new one in just because they are splitting up next year, but it hasn't actually happened yet. Me Without You. I'm really gutted that Me Without You are splitting up next year. They're doing shows and stuff like that, but that is shit news.
Yeah.
Me Without You.
All right, well, I think we've done enough.
We've done over 2 hours and 30 minutes, so I think that's
definitely enough.
Yeah.
So never ask us anything ever again. Thanks very much for listening. Go to musicism.net for your courses, and you can get some money off with the code RIOT in capitals in the checkout.